emanating from a time warp. I've orders to investigate. Beam me down, Scotty, and hold on my coordinates until I've notified you.
Come on, Lieutenant Hoare. I'll be your docent.
I seem to be in an ancient 20th century space museum. Could be an early version of the Smithsonian. A small creature, a docent. Are you familiar with that word, Mr. Spock? She's leading me around. I believe I can trust her. She's imaginative. Or you might say, Mr. Spock, fascinating.
Here are the men walking on the moon, Uhura.
Yes. We regard them as great pioneers.
Lieutenant Uhura, I believe in you. But you live way in the future. Can girls ever really be like you? Can they really chart galaxies like you do?
Now you listen to me, Alicia.
Just look to the sky every morning. Think on your goals with great care. Then close your eyes and fantasize. Then climb upon the rainbow waiting there. Just reach for your star every moment. Add up all your learnings each day. Then treasure them, just treasure them. For you're the only one who knows the way. And when you go to college, just fill your mind with knowledge, and you'll soon have your own Milky Way. So reach for it, always reach for it, just reach. Licia? Licia? Licia?
I'll be right back, Lieutenant Uhura.
All right, Alicia. Scotty, it's time I return to my own time. You have the coordinates. Beam me up.
Welcome
Welcome
to Timeline Talks.
to the Timeline Talks.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Coming to you live in Technicolor from the beautiful Hollywood Hills, California. The show where the total retail price of their advice is $0. This is Timeline Talks.
Yes, welcome everybody to the Star Trek show as hosted by Timelines Talks. I am your host, Captain Idle. I am joined, as always, by my two faithful co-hosts, Shia Porn and Stars and Garters. And that fantastic tribute at the start there was, of course, in honour of Nichelle Nichols. He sadly passed away a few weeks back, but not my first time seeing this. Guys, have you seen that before, that Smithsonian advert?
I have not.
No.
That's lovely, honestly. That's really
was amazing.
It's really good.
Yeah.
I think someone unearthed it about a few weeks ago, and I was like, I know what I'm going to play on the next show. So yeah, that's really nice. It's sort of a weird... It must have been done before Wrath of Khan, because obviously she's in the motion picture uniform and expressing her wonderful vocals.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you kind of
I love
forget
that.
just how talented of a vocalist she was. Like, man, she was just, like, doing it.
We are... Sorry, go on.
No, I just say two of my favorite things. Nichelle Nichols and the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum, which is
Absolutely.
a great visit if you're in DC.
So yeah, we got a packed show tonight. All the latest news and stuff from Star Trek, and we're going to be talking a little bit Star Trek First Contact later. So we're gonna go through that. One of the
Which is appropriate because the Smithsonian comes up in First Contact.
Indeed, it does indeed, and we've got some more stuff about the Smithsonian later as well. Can I post where I found that? I will post where I found that. I'll do that in a minute when I'm stopped talking. But yes, we are paying massive tribute. Oh, thank you, Roy Kirk, for subscribing. Oh, Windows noises again. How strange. Yes, we are paying tribute to Nichelle Nichols, who sadly passed away a few weeks back. An absolute monumental figure in the world, not just of Star Trek, not just of television, but of racial diversity and sort of the general equality of humankind. The work that she has done and the work she has been involved in has definitely progressed humanity's ethics. For most of the people that try and counter it, there will always be the message, and that sings stronger than anything else in the world. So yes, and I thank you to Nichelle Nichols for her lifetime's worth of work in that endeavour, and we definitely pay tribute. And I want to ask you guys, Shai, you've personally met Nichelle, but that regard, like, what are your favourite memories of Nichelle Nichols?
I briefly met her at Trek Condoroga, which is of course the annual convention of the at the Star Trek Original Set Tour in Ticonderoga, New York. It was like one of the last conventions she actually did before she sort of retired from the convention circuit due to health problems. But she was just luminous and regal and utterly sweet. I, like a complete dork, had a Sulu shirt on and my Beauregard Gertrude puppet, and she saw it and she lit up, recognizing it, and just was beautifully magnanimous. A wonderful, wonderful person to meet in person. Yeah.
How about you, Stars?
Well, I've never had the honor, unfortunately. Mostly because, living in the UK, you don't get as much exposure unless they happen to be a homegrown star, as it were. But I think what my first exposure to have been, I think it would have been probably my DVD copy of what was it, Voyager? No, it was Search for Spock, where she has probably one of her best scenes in the franchise, where she's holding up Mr. Adventure.
Oh yes.
And it's just an instant classic. And I remember reading up on it because she does kind of get, like everyone else gets to go to the Genesis planet and be a big hero and steal the Enterprise, but she only gets a small section of it. But I remember also reading the novelization, which my dad had, which explains that she went on to like scramble all the Starfleet communications, so they had a fighting chance of getting out of there in time. And then she had like this, I think it was like an entire chapter of just like escaping to the Vulcan embassy and hanging out with Sarek while they kind of waited to hear back.
Having drinks.
Yeah, no, just like knocking back shots, like fuck Starfleet, fuck them. And it just kind of like, even when I was younger, when I didn't quite appreciate just how much Nichelle Nichols like meant in like the wider fabric of Star Trek, I was like, this is a cool like character. This is an established officer who is just as capable as any of her counterparts, who has like, and even in the small parts that she had, like I feel like a lesser performer would have been just like swallowed up by it, but she was just, you could tell that she was capable of so much more. And I'm glad that they were able to fit in parts of that where they could. But man, like she's more than just Star Trek, and I feel like we were really lucky to have had her. Like you say, it wasn't just 3 years on TOS and a few movies. It was an entire lifetime's work of activism and just being stuff with the Smithsonian, and for a lot of work with NASA, as I recall, a lot of stuff working in recruitment. Massive role in inspiring people like Mae Jemison, and then also it was like a lot of people owe a massive debt to her, and I don't know how we're going to repay it, because God knows she was a wonderful woman, but we can only kind of just hope to live up to her example and just do right by her, as it were.
Absolutely. And I think, that permanence of, enthusiasing people to sort of join NASA, to sort of, especially in regards to sort of women and coloured women in that era was, obviously we know the story of the first interracial kiss happening on DOS. That's another milestone, in the milestone of her being promoted into a bridge officer position, a woman in power on the bridge. and also, everyone. If you don't know the story of her and Martin Luther King, of her basically about to quit the original series, and Martin Luther King talking to her and saying, "Don't do it. We need you out there, for what you represent." So, I think if those speak words themselves, and it's great that people like Celia, I forget her surname now, Celia Rose, who plays the new
Celia Rose Gooding.
That's right, yeah, Celia Rose Gooding, and oh god, brain is forgetting names.
Zoe Saldana?
Zoe Saldana,
Zoe
thank
Saldana,
you.
yeah.
Sorry, I had a brain fart there. Those continuing the legacy of Uhura in their own different interpretations is absolute testament to what she has paved the way for. I'm going to ask another question, on the fly question. I've not prepped you all about this. What would be your favourite Uhura episode or moment, apart from the ones maybe you've just described?
How dare you? Can't believe you've done this.
I'm going to say while you're thinking, I'm going to come in with like my first exposure to Uhura, because I didn't answer the question that I answered. Answer the question that I asked. I remember my first moment of Uhura was watching The Final Frontier with my dad, and this is when I was very, very young, and it was the fan dance, and that was the first time. I think it's probably one of the first Star Trek films I watched, and it was like her doing the fan dance, and I'm just like, is she? What's going to go happen? Should I be watching this? But yeah, no, I remember that. Not her finest moment, but it was there.
I mean, she comes out of that movie looking better than Shatner.
Yeah.
That's true. But one of her finest moments is just her singing and to Spock as he's accompanying her on the Vulcan harp.
Yeah.
And sort of improvising the lyrics on the fly.
Yeah, looking back on it, that's like a really interesting moment in terms of Star Trek, because it's like, that like Uhura is someone special when she can make someone who is as stoic and quote-unquote emotionless as Spock respond in such a way and have a playful moment. Like, Spock is usually not very playful with anyone who isn't called, Jim or Bones, so it's kind of a special moment.
Right. And you can see where they drew from that small moment for like the 2009 Kelvinverse films to create that relationship between Uhura and Spock. Because if you just watch like the TOS and those little moments between Uhura and Spock and the way she kind of flirts with him and show me the Vulcan moon, it completely tracks. No, Idol doesn't agree, but
oh no, I do. Then I'm there. I mean,
I think what was the other one where she was talking to was it Spock and maybe Bones about how they just don't understand women, and she's like, "There's a lot of things you don't understand, boys." Like, but I think my favorite moment for her would probably be, I actually really like her in Trouble with Tribbles. Like, she's just like so overflowing with joy over the Tribble, and it's like, it's one of those kind of things where in Star Trek, so often what you go out there to experience is out to kill you, or it's kind of cause a problem. And the Tribbles do cause a problem, but they are so much more innocent than something like the Borg or the Klingons or, the crystalline entity. It's just like something that is cute that you can enjoy, and you just seeing her enthusiasm for it is just like it's infectious. You can understand exactly why people care. She's like your viewpoint into why people care about Tribbles and why they would feed them to the point where they're about to destroy the K7 space station. It's like she's just so capable of that effervescent joy, and getting that across about space travel is important. I guess it's probably why she was so good at getting people enthused about NASA and stuff like that. But I think that's probably my favorite, because it was also, I had the Klingon Fan Collective on DVD, and that was one of the only TOS episodes on there, so it's a good one.
Yeah, and if you're joining us from the Star Trek Timelines game, you know that her card art for that moment perfectly captures that joy. Like, that art, she's like looking at that Tribble, like utter joy.
I quite like the scene, and Auto posted it in chat, where she sort of gets, at the time, it probably wasn't blinked at, but she gets called a racial slur, which was common at the time, but then she recounters with such a powerful moment. It's like, but why should I object to that term? You see, in our century, we've learned not to fear words. And I thought, yeah, that's so good. Like, I remember that speech because I rewatched, I kind of watched TOS through for the first time a couple of years back, and I remember watching that, just kind of going, yeah, that's what empowerment sounds like. That's someone that doesn't fear what the future could be. Like, that's a great moment. So yeah,
it's moments like that where you kind of get Roddenberry's ethos about the evolved human being, where it's not about looking different, it's not about like having obtained some kind of super special power, it's about the enlightenment of the mind and becoming just so transcending beyond that and stupid things like prejudice.
So yeah, I think we'll all be mourning Nichelle Nichols. I think, for the terms of the progress of humanity and rights and standing up to what we should be and ideals we should be, I think of all the original series cast, she's probably the most important in that regard. There were other, obviously, Lieutenant Sulu and Chekhov were other sort of areas of racial diversity, but I think at the time, with segregation within America, with such racial hatred happening, and there was hatred happening at the time, like having that was such an important moment, and we will never forget the moments that brought us to where we are now, and still struggling with now in some areas. Not as bad as we were, but it's still a fight that needs to be happened. And I think the conversations that she had then and the conversations we have now shouldn't ever stop.
Absolutely.
We have you to thank for that. In other news, and another unfortunate death. If anyone knows Paul Sorvino from his work in The Goodfellas and Law and Order, Star Trek fans might know him as Worf's brother, Nikolai. From the episode Homewood in season 7, where he suddenly just pops out of nowhere. So anyone that turns
season
around and goes,
7 is the season of
issues.
Forgotten Family in TNG. Yeah.
For anyone that turns around and goes, Spock had sisters and brothers, are like, yeah, so did Worf. Worf had a brother just turn up. So yes, this is my brother. Oh, and then wait a minute, I have a Klingon brother as well, and a human brother. And
I'm trying to remember. Did they even mention him in any of the previous
they did.
things? I don't think they do. They just pop him out of nowhere, don't they?
Which makes sense. I mean, Sergei and Helena could have had a child. It's completely reasonable. But it's just weird that he never gets mentioned until they suddenly go oh yeah, should we give Worf a brother? Why not? Fuck it.
Well, it does kind of make sense because Worf is ashamed of him because he isn't the dutiful son.
True,
Look, this is a theme in Star Trek, right?
Yeah.
We just bring out siblings. Kirk has a brother. Spock has a brother. Spock has a sister. Spock has
has a son.
Spock has another brother.
It's tradition, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to
it's
think.
Star
Is there
Trek tradition.
anyone in TNG season 7 who doesn't get a surprise family member? Because Picard gets his fake son.
Riker. I mean, he gets his dad in season 2, but does he have
He
any
also
others?
gets his transporter duplicate.
True, but that's not in season 7. If you're entirely saying season 7, Riker doesn't.
Is it not?
Does he?
Oh, he gets the Pegasus. That's kind of, but that's not a family member.
It's a past.
Not a family
member.
Yeah. And Troy gets Kestra.
Yeah.
Crusher gets the Ghost and her Nana.
Yeah.
even
by the way, I'm
even
Scottish.
Dead Yar. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Shara. Yeah.
Yeah. Even Dead Yar gets a fake sister for a little bit.
Sure, and she gets Sailor as well. So, and Data gets Juliana.
Oh yeah,
Juliana
that's right,
Tainer.
yes.
Everyone gets one.
Yeah. Here's my mother.
But I think of all of them. I think of all of them, Nikolai is one of the ones that works better.
Yeah.
Just because I love how. Worf as a character kind of doesn't make a ton of sense if you think about the fact that he was raised on Earth and on Galt. I don't know what the timeline is on that. I forget what the timeline is on which one he lived on first. And yet he's this ultra Klingon, the Klingonaboo, whatever they've called it, where it's he's more Klingon than Klingon. Yes. He holds himself to an impossible standard. And then they drop the bomb of his family are Orthodox Russian. I don't remember if they're Jewish. I think one of the actors is Jewish for his parents. And it's
implied, isn't it? But not stated.
Suddenly it all makes sense. Suddenly Worf makes perfect sense, not as a Klingon, but as a Russian. And it's just okay, yeah, that's perfectly fine. And Nikolai is a really interesting character as a contrast to Worf. And he's also able to get reactions out of Worf that I don't think you really get out of almost anyone else. Because the way that he acts with Nikolai, where he's kind of disappointed with him and just got that chiding brother tone, every other interaction he has with, say, Kern, Kern is arguably in kind of a position of authority over him in some respects, and Alexander, obviously, he's in a position of authority over Alexander, and he's a really bad father, but he still has a position of power. But with Nikolai, there's that parity where they are brothers, and you can see that affection between them, and neither of them really have any power over each other, and it's just a conflict of personalities. And Paul Sorvino was really good at, I don't know if he and Michael Dorn have worked together before, but they just have really good chemistry, and they play off as brothers really well. because you kind of buy that fractured, oh, I don't want to go down and deal with, oh god, is he here? Fucking damn it, god damn it. Like that kind of relationship with a sibling where it's like, you love them, but good god if they don't make your life hard. And man, Nikolai makes his life so hard in Homewood. But it's just a nice way of tying up, and it adds to Worf's character in a way that has nothing to do about... I've talked about this before, where it's always nice when you have a character who is the viewpoint of a culture when they have a storyline that has nothing to do with that culture, where it's just about them as a person. And Nikolai is a really good way of bringing that out of Worf, so I quite enjoy it. And it is... Although the only big problem with the episode I have is that it is an awful depiction of the Prime Directive, because it's like, oh boy, it's... That does not paint Picard in a nice light.
To be fair, he was kind of forced into it, wasn't he? There wasn't a lot of... He was... It's like, by the way...
Well, no, I mean about like just like,
Okay.
Well, no, I'm talking about the fact that like there's like, oh well, the planet's going to die, nothing we can do.
Oh yes,
it's
no,
like
that's
that part of it. Yeah.
See, I need a Discovery or a Picard episode where one of these races, the Kelpians or this race that Paul Sorvino saves, ends up being like these world-conquering, planet-destroying tyrants, and we should have just let them. We should have just let nature take its course. But no, you had to violate the Prime Directive, and now billions are dead.
Yeah, all because of poor old Nikolai. But
poor old Nikolai.
I don't know, he's a great performer. He was a fun character.
Yeah.
And Paul Sorvino is just like he's one of those character actors where you see him and you instantly recognize his face. I always love seeing those like people where they have just like
I know you from somewhere. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Like if you're recognizable enough. Like I was watching an episode of Sharp, which is like a Napoleonic TV drama.
Sean Bean.
Sean Bean, and there's an actor who appears in it for all of like he has like maybe 5 lines. But I looked at him and he had one of those faces, and I was like, "You were in a Bond movie." And I looked it up, and sure enough, he was in a Bond movie for again all 3 lines.
Wow.
But I feel like that's something that kind of doesn't happen as much anymore, is because everyone has to be conventional Hollywood attractive, like our good friend Shia Porn. No one's allowed to be like character actor ugly anymore, or just like not conventionally attractive.
You can't carry the performance with your words anymore. You have to have the...
Yeah, you have to look like you can belong on a CW show.
I think the thing is... like,
there's a lot of CW theming going on, yeah. Also father of Mira Sorvino, for those of you
what was she?
who know
Oh,
that.
really?
Yeah.
What was she, who was that? Sorry, my ignorance is showing.
Who's Mira Sorvino?
Yes.
She was in like Mighty Aphrodite. She was on like House MD.
She's on. I've watched
Rami
House.
Michelle's high school reunion.
Right.
She was kind of a thing in like the
was she on House?
90s,
Was she House's
2000s.
Boss?
No. She was just on a one-off on House where she was sort of playing the equivalent of the woman from A Scandal in Bohemia.
Okay.
Fair enough.
But yeah, no.
Garrick, in case you're curious, Sean Bean lives through every episode.
Wow.
That's why Sharp is weird. Sean Bean is in every episode and he doesn't die once. Comes close, but...
I mean, he was in 9 episodes of Game of Thrones before. Anyway, spoilers. Paul Sorvino.
I think you're okay on that one.
Yeah, I think I'm fine. Like, when they get good actors on TNG, you can show it, because they've had a lot of like bit parts with bad actors. Like, there you can tell, like, or people that sort of wander in, like, I know my lines. This is my one of 3 TV appearances, and then I'm never seeing anything. But so Paul Sorvino, you can just sort of tell, like,
you can say the guy who said about the heterosexual declination.
Yes.
You can say that guy.
Oh no,
it's
he
fine.
should
He's
be
not
in more
gonna...
stuff. He carried that scene. Like, that was...
What do you mean?
I want to know what else.
You say
he's
you
in.
don't like that delivery? Oh, amazing.
There's like a big old like ham sitting next to the amount of cheese he provides in that line.
It's like, can we have where's the scenery gone? Oh, it's been eaten.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's stuck in my teeth. But yeah, no, you're right. When you get a really good bit actor, it can completely change the tenor of an episode. Like the Ensigns of Command versus Evolution, for example, where you have that actor who plays what's his name, Gorshavan, who's the leader of the colonists opposing Data, and he's just not a great performer. I think he even was like, I hate my performance. You can dub over me, and it's like it's not a good sign when you are saying no, dub over me. I did a shit performance.
And then you get
versus the esteemed Bob Kelso, exactly, yeah, where he, that baseball monologue completely makes the character that otherwise, as written, would be kind of dull and just has a defining character tick. And Paul Sorvino is one of those actors where it's like, if you give him the right material, he will absolutely elevate it. He was just such a talent.
Yeah. Well, the old saying is there are no small roles, only small actors.
That's not bad.
Try telling that to The Rock. He ain't small in nothing. Okay. Rest in peace, Nichelle Nichols and Paul Sorvino. You will both be dearly missed in all our hearts. Coming up very soon, I believe it is indeed either this weekend or next. I should have put the date in the notes. I didn't. I will find out in a moment. Star Trek Day is coming upon us very soon.
Professionalism. I believe it's September 8th.
September 8th. Let me double check my sources. Not Star Trek movie. I can't find it. Yeah, let's say September 8th. Let's go with that. Coming very soon, either next weekend. Star Trek Day has started. This is the annual tradition. I think it's been going for the last 4 or 5 years now. And it marks the air date of the first. I can't remember which show it was. Was it Where No One Was... No, was it The Man Trap that was aired first on that date?
You're asking a question there.
Yeah, I think that's right, isn't it? Yeah,
that's correct.
Star Trek Day. Why it's not on the 17th of January, I don't know, but I guess we all have different interpretations of time zones. Hey ho. It's 1701.
Why would it be 17th of January?
1701, thank you. Come on. Fake fan.
First air date makes more sense, dude.
Yeah, no, that's cool.
If it was, and not to mention, in the hierarchy, it goes first air date and then it goes first contact day. That's the one that makes sense. April 5th.
Yeah, that would be cool. That would have been, right. Maybe that might have been a bit too hard for the executives to understand. Like, what? First contact? Is that a new celebration? Do we need to print cards? But yeah, Star Trek Day is coming. There will be a day of streaming on the StarTrek.com, and I think they're going to have panels from Strange New Worlds, from Star Trek Picard, from other things. One thing's not making an appearance. I believe Discovery is not making an appearance, but I believe a lot of people are filming. I don't think they have anything to show, but I'm kind of curious.
Direction at this point.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious if we're going to get trailers or anything new. I wonder if we're going to... Because Alex Kurtzman's been out there saying, we've got 2 new shows in development. I wonder if there's going to be a little bit of like, oh, here it is. Because, we'll be well into Lower Decks by this point, so they won't be showing that off. So I wonder if we're going to be seeing the rumoured Starfleet Academy series, or maybe any more news about Section 31.
Yeah, you brought this up to me, Idol, and you were like, oh, I hope they show trailers. And I kind of just started going through the list of Star Trek shows in my head of what they can show. And I'm like, well, Discovery's literally in the middle of production now, so they can have nothing for that. Strange New World Season 2 is probably right in the middle of VFX work, and maybe they have a few completed shots, but I doubt it. Lower Decks is going to be currently airing while it's going, so it's not going to be Season 4 of that. Picard, maybe a Season 3 trailer, but it's a bit outside. We already got the teaser showing off all the TNG returning characters like a month or 2 ago. I can't remember how long ago that was. Maybe we'll get an announcement of Prodigy Season 1 Part 2. I could see that.
Yeah, I could see a trailer for that, actually. Well, just to show you go on.
I was just going to say, if they're smart, considering Michelle Yeoh is having like Michelle Yeoh-assance right now because of the worldwide phenomenon that is everything everywhere all at once. And they should have picked up her option and immediately shot
a Witcher
Section
prequel.
31.
A Witcher prequel soon as well.
Oh, is she? Awesome.
Yeah, she's cast in that. I think that's finished filming by now. So yeah, we are in the age of Yeoh.
Yeah, why would you not immediately pick up her option and shoot Section 31?
Like, she wants to do it as well. She's been on various chat shows saying, like, yeah, I'd love to do this, but COVID happens. So.
Well, because it's an opportunity for her to get dressed up in tight leather, kick people in the face, and have sex. Like, that's kind of an actor's dream job, is it not, Shy?
Yeah. Yes. It's true.
How many intimacy coordinators do you have, Shy? Okay, the panels that
What's that? You're breaking up.
Oh, sorry. The panels that will be happening on the day, there's going to be a Star Trek Picard panel with interviews with Jerry Ryan and Michelle Hurd, and that's another conversation. After Picard, there is rumours going around that there may be a 7 show, which would be amazing, because I think there's a lot of interest in continuing, despite the critical... sort of the fans' sort of opinions on Picard seasons, people still do want to see that universe carry on with those characters, so that would be interesting to see if they've got anything to announce regarding that. But I suspect they might want to let Picard season 3 clear the way first before they go anywhere.
Well, this is why you keep on saying, "Oh, like Section 31, Starfleet Academy." I don't think that, like, what sense does it make from a business perspective to start advertising shows that aren't coming out yet while you're still promoting your current raft of 5 shows?
Yeah, true.
This doesn't quite make a ton of sense to me.
I think it's for the fans, though. The fans want to hear, like, this is coming. They may not have to show anything, but just say, like, this is the next series and this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
The same way they did with Strange New Worlds. It was literally just an announcement saying, yeah, we're doing it. And everyone just went, yes, thank God. So, you know.
Yeah, I suppose.
Think about how excited fans get every time Kevin Feige, like, maps out Phase 5 through Phase 6. Just a graphic. They just go crazy over, like, the title graphic.
Just rip it off.
Being on a black screen. Yeah.
Yeah. What
you're saying is that Alex Kurtzman should come out with a timeline that has all the existing Star Trek shows on it, and then one should just appear and it says Star Trek Harriman, and then everyone will lose their minds.
I'm down for it. Give me the Enterprise B. Recast Harriman. Mind you, how old's the actor now? He's probably a bit too old to reprise, but
he's 60s, 70s, I think.
He's on Succession. He's
is
on
he?
Succession right
okay.
now. He's on one of the biggest shows in the States right now.
Fantastic. Oh, there we go. Harriman.
That'd be such a weird pull. That'd be such a weird pull to grab Alan Ruck to play it at Captain John Harriman.
Absolutely. But I think you know, if they wanted to take it, you know, straight after Generations and recast him and then do an Enterprise B, maybe little mini-series, I'll be there. I'll be there for that. Let's do it. Let's get some Demora Sulu in.
You could do us.
Yeah. Do it. So there's also going to be a Lower Decks panel with Tawny Newsome, Noel Wells, Dawn Lewis. There's be a Prodigy panel. Now, Prodigy's an interesting one. Kate Mulgrew has been on record saying, dropping major hints about maybe we'll be seeing Janeway in live action in some form. Maybe we'll see the Prodigy cast, maybe in some sort of live action. However, that's going to work. That's going to be a heavy amount of CG, but I think there may be some sort of implication that Janeway's going to cross some boundary somewhere into some sort of one of the live actions. Picard makes the most logical sense, but who knows?
It's the only live action show set in the correct time period, correct?
Yeah,
so
absolutely. But I think we'll definitely, like you say, we'll definitely see the next part of a trailer for the next part of the show for that, which I'm quite excited for because you finished it now, haven't you, Stars?
I have. Prodigy is a lot better than I don't know. I wasn't expecting anything bad, but I wasn't quite expecting it to be as die-hard Star Trek as it is. Like, it's just like so fervent about Starfleet and the promise of the Federation. And it's always a case of like, I don't think that kind of thing is missing from Discovery. Like Discovery, they talk about it a lot, but it's a case of it's a different ethos and different style that comes out with Prodigy.
It's these outsiders being told about the Federation through the guise of, you know, Janeway.
Yes, that's exactly it. Actually, yeah, it's a very different perspective.
Yeah. Janeway is the training hologram, so it's easy to put her into any of the live-action shows at this point. Like the post-TNG era live-action show. But she's a hologram, so...
They could do what they did with Sukals and just, like, you know, they aged with him, maybe. I don't know.
I suppose so. Good day.
Yeah. And there's also going to be a Strange New Worlds panel with Rebecca Romaine. I can never say her name. Rebecca Romaine, Christina Chong, Jess Bush.
Like the lettuce.
Yes.
Romaine.
Yeah, Romaine.
Celia Rose Gooding, Melissa Navia, and Babs. Okay, here we go. Alusa Mokan. I think I said that right. Apologies if I got that wrong. And there is a brief behind-the-scenes tour of Discovery. I think there'll be a season 5 tour, but that's still filming. And they will have a Nichelle Nichols tribute and a few other things going on as well. There is going to be a special musical guest, Reggie Watts from the James Corden show. I don't know how good that is, but who knows? And some Star Trek themed stand-up comedy by Brian Posehn. So,
if you don't get Joe Piscopo, what's the fucking point?
And a giant cigar, yeah. Everyone do it. So yeah. That could be interesting. I might do a live watch along on the stream. I might say put it on and then be alongside it. We might chat over it. Might be interesting to sort of like.
Yeah, it's one of those weird things where you said, "Should we do a show on this?" I'm like, we're gonna have enough to talk about because like the last time I watched it, it was okay, just to watch on my own. But I feel like if it had been just, like, all of us watching it and commentating on it like it was at the E3 conference.
Namer! Thank you, Namer, for subscribing and getting the wonderful Windows 95 boost. People were complaining because I had the Windows noises popping up, so I took it to the extreme. Anyway, sorry, carry on.
Incredible. It's not quite like an E3 conference where it's just like trailer. There's a lot of people talking. There's a lot of people.
True.
And the backstory thing. It's like watching a con. Like, if you watch a con appearance that's been posted on YouTube, you watch like a 3-minute clip of Brent Spiner telling a funny story about Patrick Stewart like falling on his ass. You don't watch the entire hour and 30 where people stumble over their words trying to get words out because they're like, "Oh, I'm excited," which viable.
What if we mute it and put our own dubs over the top? Okay, maybe not.
Idle, I don't know if you want to do that considering the fact that you've been spanked at What the Dub every time you've played.
That's very true. My What the Dub skills are absolutely awful. But anyway, Star Trek Day, September the 8th is coming. Karmasaurus has subscribed! Thank you very much for subscribing. You are absolute asset to us all. And just for a reminder, if anyone's subscribing, 100% of the money goes to charity on our charity day. So thank you very much for all that. Okay. We've got a few releases coming out. Star Trek Resurgence, you know about the game that's coming out from former Telltale Games. No actual release date on that yet. However, we are getting a comic book tie-in. Which is coming out. There's a few comics and books coming out, which is surprising me because the book line has been a bit lackluster lately. But yeah, Star Trek Resurgence is getting a comic tie-in that will feature Dr. Leah Brahms, of all people, is going to be linking into this.
Is it actually her or is it the hologram?
Well, this is the question, so who knows? This could be the training data from the Enterprise D, and she'll just be like, "Oh, where is Geordie?" I'm like, "No, I'm here." Like,
I guess.
Geordie's just always hiding behind a corner, kind of like staring at her around, like corners in the back.
It's like the meme of the guy behind a tree, just like, "Yes, I'm gonna get mine."
Yeah.
No, you know what I want? I'm not a massive fan of Family Guy anymore. I think it's gone bad. But the pointing evil monkey who was hiding in the closet, just like that. But it's Geordie and like Leia, just like
absolutely wow. As well as the Resurgence book, so I wonder if that's going to be a prequel or a tie-in, but that's kind of the one interesting thing. We're all keeping our eyes on that because it's like, oh, new Star Trek game. There's also going to be a Prodigy comic as well coming out alongside, I think, the new season when that starts. There's also going to be 2 book tie-ins, actual books, not just comics. So they're going to be what they call middle grade adventures. That is actually how they've described it. I assume that means middle grade
adventures.
Yes, that's what they call them. So I assume they just mean this is for kids who watch the show, but we're still going to read it.
No, they're just very average. They're just very average adventures.
These books are okay.
Mid. They're alright.
Yeah, middle grade.
Don't come in with too high expectations.
But you'll be pleasantly surprised, just like the real show. Yes, 2. I'll read the blurbs for them. The first book is Star Trek Prodigy Supernova, which is also in the name of the game, which is coming out, I've got a date for this, on October the 14th, so keep an eye out. We'll be playing that.
That's really close, actually. That's only like a month or 2 away.
A couple of months, so we'll be playing that, I reckon. I'll get that. Yes, Supernova is an adventure based on the forthcoming video game, written by Rob Perlman, not Ron Perlman. Don't get that wrong. Not written by Shinzon himself, so just calm down.
It was the Viceroy... Fake fan.
By Hellboy?
Viceroy, sorry, yes.
It's written by Hellboy?
It's written by Hellboy, yes. So the blurb actually says, in this middle grade adventure based on the Star Trek Prodigy video game, Dal and Gwyn must rescue their missing crewmates when the protostar crash lands in a peculiar star system. The crew ends up separated and Dal and Gwyn must work together to find their missing crewmates. They don't have much time though. The nearby star is destabilized in danger of creating a supernova. Then Dal and Gwyn discover evil droids patrolling the area and they look just like the Watchers back in Tars Lamora. How will Dal and Gwyn confront this nightmare from their past and prevent an explosion in the near future? That sounds quite fun. And I think if that ties in directly to the book as well, that could be into the game as well. That could be an interesting sort of comparison. So it's cool that they're finally learning, like, and I hate this word, but synergy, a little synergy between the comic, the game, and books, and the show. It's like a bit like, okay, you're actually starting to put your cards on the table here.
Well, I think all of us here remember a time where you couldn't like throw a stone without hitting a Star Trek book or comic book or video game or some kind of tie-in, and yeah, the quality wasn't always there, but most of the time it was. So, like, you know, games like Legacy, which we've been playing, Elite Force, which is on the docket. It's just like a ton of like strong things from that really specific period, from like 1995. Yeah. 95 to like 2005, I'd say, it's kind of like your golden era, and then it kind of falls off.
When was Birth of the Federation?
99. That was.
Was it 99?
Yeah. Just before
Yeah,
the millennium.
that was kind of the peak. Was in like the late 90s, but
When
like
Microprose
it
had
existed
the
into
license.
2000s.
Yeah, Microprose had the license.
Yeah,
They did
pretty
the
much.
best stuff. The other book is Star Trek Prodigy: A Dangerous Trade. This is actually coming. Actually, there are actually release dates. The first one is coming out on January 17th. The next one's also coming out on January 17th. So 2 books. While traveling through the Delta Quadrant, the Protostar crew discovers a worn transporter coil on their ship. Despite Janeway's misgivings, the crew decides to trade a Starfleet-issued battery for new transporter parts at a market on a distant planet. Little do they know that a group of rogue traders are intent on getting their hands on something much bigger, the Protostar. Will the crew be able to defend their ship and stay out of trouble? Star Trek fans will love this brand new original story featuring all the heart, humour, and action of the Prodigy series. That could be fun. That could be a lot of fun. Would you like to read about something a bit weirder? Now, this is a real odd one. There's another comic coming out. And this is literally
Is it a particularly erotic section of your grandmother's journal, Idol?
It is not.
Yes.
It is not. No, what I found when my grandmother passed away, I went through the bookshelves and I found the communist... What was it? The little red book.
The Communist Manifesto.
The Communist Manifesto.
Karl Marx?
No, not Karl Marx's one. The one by...
Engels?
No, the
Mao?
Chinese...
Mao?
Chairman Mao, yes. That's the one.
Yeah.
So yeah, I found that on her bookshelf. So not quite the same. Anyway, this is... I kept it. I've got it.
That was inflammatory.
So this is literally the comic, and they're just calling it Star Trek #1. Okay, so this is going to be a new series in a series called Star Trek. But it's a series about Cisco, okay? And I'm just going to read you the blurb. This is really weird. So, Star Trek 1 weaves an epic and unprecedented adventure story that spans the far reaches of the Star Trek multiverse, bringing together characters from across the galaxies and all areas and variations of the beloved franchise who must band together to prevent the mysterious murder of the gods. It's Stardate 2378, and Benjamin Sisko has finally returned from the Bajoran wormhole omnipotent. But his godhood is failing with every minute. Sent by the prophets on a mission to the deepest parts of space aboard the USS Theseus, he witnesses the unthinkable. Someone is killing the gods, and only Sisko and his motley crew of Starfleet members from every era of Trek can stop them. His main crew consists of Dr. Beverly Crusher and Lieutenant Commander Data. So Sisko, Crusher, and Data flying around on the USS Theseus, finding out who's killing gods, and that's so bizarre for a series.
It's Thor.
It's Star Trek Love and Thunder, yeah?
I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
Spoilers. Anyway, but yes.
I ain't seen it either.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, that's such a weird mix, and they're joined by an Andorian child called Sato, and a Vulcan named Talir. So this is for a series called Star Trek, like Star Trek #1. They're just gonna go like, no, this is batshit crazy. We're just gonna go real weird.
I mean, Star Trek should be weird. If it's not Star Trek, if it's not weird, it's not Star Trek, really. Honestly.
This is like Sisko's come back from the dead. He is a god now, but he needs some help.
Well, guess what? The thing is with Sisko is that, for whatever myriad reasons that Hollywood refuses to employ Avery Brooks, we're only ever going to get a sequel to his story in comic books or video games or books.
Yeah.
So, might as well take advantage of it where you can. And to be honest, we've had our fill of Picard stories. He's literally got a series going on right now. Kirk, I'm pretty sure, still has, what is it, Star Trek ongoing or Star Trek Year 5? I'm not sure if that's wrapped up
Yeah,
yet.
that's the IDW stuff, isn't it?
Yeah. Janeway has Prodigy going on right now. No one gives a toss about Archer, so it makes the most logical sense to go for Sisko.
How dare you?
I dare, sir.
Ooh. I think there's been enough call for people that want a Series 5 of Enterprise in an animated format that they should do it. I think there
Guess
is...
what? I would love that.
I
I
would
would actually
absolutely
love
adore
that. I think, I especially think that Archer would really benefit from the writing consistency style that Janeway has gotten in Prodigy, where in Voyager, her writing varied quite a bit depending on who was in the writer's room and who was putting what on the paper. But in Prodigy, she's a lot more consistent. And I think that Archer would also benefit from a smoothed out, more developed way how he was going in season 4, where you actually felt like a captain you could respect instead of want to laugh at. So,
but only if they get James Darren. Only if they get James Darren to sing "Faith of the Heart" in a really like jazz Vic Fontaine. Yes, absolutely.
No,
No, you get like a You get like Enya to do a cover, or not Enya, Bjork. You get Bjork, to do a cover.
Oh, yeah, give me Bjork's Faith of the Heart. That'd be mad. That'd just be madness. Madness incarnate. Yeah, so that's
I'm
a series.
not
of
this.
I might read that.
time.
Is it Bjork here? She arrived.
Getting from there to here. Anyway,
Like she's in the room. Other releases, the Discovery Season 4 soundtrack is coming out in 2 days for those that are soundtrack aficionados. I love a good soundtrack. I confess I will listen to Star Trek soundtracks on my drive to and from work sometimes, just to give my drive a little bit of atmosphere. And
So you shifted to Gear 3 and you're like, hit to Warp Factor 7.
Or Factor 3, Mr. Sulu. No, I sometimes use it to go through when I'm planning like Star Trek Adventures scripts, and it kind of gives me like the motivation when I'm going through them in my head and just like, right, I need like, let's get some Klingon music on and I'll drive home and like, da 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 da, like, all right, I'm Chang now.
oh yeah, yeah. When Fleet boss battles introduced in the game we play, I played the soundtrack from that episode.
Oh really?
Yeah. It was great. It was great. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Have they announced a date for the Strange New World soundtrack? Because that's the one I kind of really want, because there are some music tracks in it I really love.
No, not as far as I'm aware.
Trekkie for Life, it's literally Jerry Goldsmith's Klingon theme. It's amazing. It's incredible.
Star Trek
it's
motion picture
a revelation.
Soundtrack for literally the first
It's
track.
also Worf's theme.
Yeah.
I love that we have now progressed to a point where we can have Star Trek with proper background music. Because I don't know if people are aware of this, but TNG Season 1, 2, 3, you had the esteemed Ron Jones as your composer, who came up with, say, that memorable Best of Both Worlds cliffhanger music and the Borg theme. And then they were like, this is drawing attention away from the actors. Yeah, no, it's too exciting. And they threw out Ron Jones for being too good at his job. And then they established what has literally been called the sonic wallpaper design, where the music was as bland and melangy as possible.
It's all just fifths all the way up, because you listen to the Birth of the Federation music and it's like it's taken from that era, and you can kind of replicate that. For pianists and musicians out there, just keep hitting fifths as far as you can, and that's all it is.
Pretty much. But ever since Discovery came back, like between Picard and Strange New Worlds, and they've been done really, especially Prodigy. Prodigy has an amazing soundtrack.
Prodigy's great, like the soundtrack. I will say
they've done a really good job of
Jeff Russo's, like his soundtracks. I'm not as keen on for like Discovery and for Picard. They can be a bit flat. I found, like, I try to listen to those. I can tell when I'm listening to a Discovery soundtrack when I'm driving along, I'm like, oh, this is quite dull, it's subdued. Not like the bombacious Ron Jones soundtrack, or even like you can tell like the Voyager stuff as well is a little bit more exciting and a bit peppy. On like, you know, I've got the Ron Jones CD set. Like there's like a
of course you do.
Like 12 CDs. It's brilliant. It's really good. But you can tell there's the style that he, and especially that like you said, the Best of Both Worlds. That really iconic. Just before he scans up in like the strings crescendo up into that da 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 da, and it's nothing like it. Like it's so moving.
Yeah, no, I definitely have to agree that Jeff Russo's his incidental music is not as strong. I really like the themes for all the new shows. I think every theme is good, especially Discovery and like Strange New Worlds is great. But what's her Nami Melumad, who is the one who's been doing the word. I apologize if I butchered her name. She's the one who did the incidental music for Strange New Worlds, and I think for I'm not sure if it was for Prodigy as well, but she's been doing a great job.
She might well have done, and she's a apprentice or a understudy for Michael Giacchino, who did the absolutely amazing soundtracks for Star Trek 09, and he wrote the theme song for Star Trek Prodigy as well, which is amazing.
Yeah, you can hear that. It's really it's probably the best thing out of the Kelvinverse is the soundtrack.
That's so good.
Yeah, probably.
I
Honestly,
get shivers. No, 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 no. As soon as I hear that, I get that shivers. And you get that little sort of the taiko drums go. So good. Sorry, I'm butchering it over like my microphone here, but go listen to the 09 soundtrack. It's real good.
No, I played like Star Trek Fleet Command for a good 6 months just because that game introed with that music. And then I realized I hated the game. But I liked the music.
So Trekkie for Life, when we say soundtracks, we are actually referring to different things, because when it comes to a TV show, you have your theme song, which is your Voyager done by yeah, exactly. It's done by Jerry Goldsmith or it's done by Jeff Russo, and that's your main theme. That's your this is how you know what show you're watching just based off the intro without visuals, type thing. And then there is the actual soundtrack, which is you buy your 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 track thing, and it's nothing but a collection of 30-second, 45-second, 1 minute, 10-minute long tracks that are keyed to specific moments. Like if you go and grab James Horner's soundtrack for Wrath of Khan, you've got the main. It's one of the best soundtracks in the entirety of ever.
See, that's a driving
main
soundtrack.
theme.
It's literally Holst's The Planets, but for Star Trek, and it's so good. Because I've told the story before, but I sat at dinner. I thought I'm going to educate my children. I'm going to play some classical music, and instead of just like CBBS radio for a change, I'm like, I'll put on Holst's The Planets. I've always wanted to listen to this properly, and I'm listening to it, and I'm going, this is the Wrath of Khan. This is all of this is just James Horner. It's like this is where he got it from. It's like unmistakably like you can get every influence from it.
Oh well, it's the same thing with John Williams. Guess what? All music is theft.
Oh yeah,
that's fine.
Yeah, it's all Tchaikovsky. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was watching, just as a little aside, I used to buy these bootleg DVDs of kung fu films direct from like Hong Kong in Chinatown. Nice. And we were watching one like Samurai versus Ninja or something, and or Shaolin versus Ninja, and the movie producers had just lifted the entirety of the Wrath of Khan soundtrack and used it for their movie. Wow. I was like, "What is this?"
So, it's a weird experience.
And it kind of worked. That's
the mark of a good soundtrack when you put on a thing. But yeah, so Trek for Life, it is literally it's the background music, and how good it is can massively change how good a scene is.
Music and sound is
like
so
there are
important.
bits. Like if you think of a mock time, if you just had like some generic fight music, it wouldn't be nearly as iconic as it is, I don't think. Because you have that really strong 60s, it's ultra dramatic. Music is meant to be part of the texture of a film or a TV show. It is inextricably tied into it. And some people go the other route, which is to use like licensed music, so like actual pop music that you'll have there, or sometimes you'll have a person working on site to make an album. But with Star Trek, you always usually have a strong orchestral component. And in the 90s, it just wasn't as strong. And nowadays, you can really hear the difference in the incident or background music. Like, if you want an experience, if you've never done this before, just grab the Wrath of Khan soundtrack and just listen to it. Just listen to it from beginning to end, and you can hear it. You can watch the movie in your head by listening to the music cues if you know it well enough. And then it's like that it becomes inextricably tied into your brain, and it's like that's an instant hit of serotonin every time you get it. It's wonderful.
All the movies have good soundtracks, to be honest. Like I can't think of any. Maybe The Search for Spock is okay, but I think a lot of the.
No, Search for Spock has Stealing the Enterprise. That's like one of the best.
Yeah,
that's like a 9-minute track. It's amazing.
Did they ever release
Final Frontier
soundtrack? Did they ever do?
Yeah,
that?
it's a Jerry Goldsmith work, dude.
Okay, I think I probably.
It's got the Klingon.
As much.
It has a really nice version of the TNG theme, which as I said, it's just like the Star Trek fanfare, as it were. But it's tied in with "Life Is But a Dream," row, row, row your boat. So you get like an orchestral version with the banjo, and then it twirls together, and it becomes one line.
This is not making it better.
Is great.
You mentioned licensed music, and I guess we'll talk about this more once we get into First Contact. But it's nice that modern Trek has actually shelled out a little bit more money for actual pop songs versus all the fake pop songs that we had to suffer through.
Oh, like the DS9s. This is future music when they walk into Quarks and they're just like hitting weird xylophones and aliens dancing
or the
on
shooby dooby music from First Contact.
Shooby dooby music. How dare you insult Magic Carpet Ride?
Yeah. Well, I feel
that's the one. That's the best part.
Oh,
See, look how much better that works than
if that were
the fake
orchestral, it
Elvis.
wouldn't work nearly as well. Nearly as well. But yeah, that's like a perfect example of it. And with licensed music, it was part of what made TNG and DS9 and Voyager feel the way they did. Is because they never used licensed music; they could only ever use classical music. So you had this by-effect of everyone felt like they were up their asses. I only listen to classical music. I don't listen to anything that has like
I think
lyrics.
Lower Decks play on that, don't they? It's like, well, on the on the flagships, they just listen to classical music. They think they're so much better than us, don't they?
I would
Gilbert
love to
and
be part of a
Sullivan.
string quartet. The most musical you get is like an 18th century operetta. Whereas that's not how it would work. I refuse to believe that people aren't listening to the Beastie Boys or the Beatles in 2283. I refuse to believe that they're not. So it just adds to the texture thing. And yes, you can sometimes get a bit dated, but I'd rather you go for the authenticity of, no, people actually listen to real music. Like, not to say that
I'm just
orchestral
imagining
isn't,
Jake
but it's just
Sisko in the back
full-
room of Quark somewhere just listening to like jungle, like just sitting there like raving in a jungle. His dad's coming. What is this?
You know what? I
Dad,
bet you
wouldn't
Jake
understand.
was. I bet he was really big into Florence and the Machine.
Yeah, exactly. No, when like Wyclef Jean's mix of Staying Alive pops on in season 1.
Oh, I love that Discovery in season 1. Yeah, because it's thematic. It's great.
It's a great anchor. Yeah, it's a great anchor for
I'm
that
glad
episode.
no one came out and went, "Oh, it's just classical music," because I hate that. Whenever someone, I think they did that in Sequest DSV. There was like, I was listening to rock, and they were like, "Oh, I'm just listening to some classical music." I'm like, "No, it's so bad."
I don't know. I find it occasionally charming when they do it in the Kelvin movies. Like when they did it in Beyond, I was like, "That's pretty funny." Like when they're playing Beastie Boys and they call it classical music, it's hilarious.
Yeah, no, I did like that. But I did like, what was it? Jayla's just like, I like the noise.
The banging and
The
shouting.
banging and the shouting, yeah. That was better. That was a better way of doing it.
Yeah. That's how you do it. But anyway, that was a long diatribe about licensed music and incidental music. But guess what? That's what happens on this show.
Go listen to the Wrath of Khan soundtrack.
Yes, always. Battle of the Mutara Nebula, I think, is like 8 minutes long. It's incredible from beginning to end.
Yeah, actually, the Strange New World soundtrack is really good. Like of all the soundtracks, whoever I forget who it is that wrote it, really goes back and listens to the Ron Jones stuff and the basically takes those late TNG and DS9 soundtracks and just amplifies them up, gives them the John Williams treatment, and just goes, let's make this a bit more bombastic.
And it has that TOS evocative as well, where you get the exact same music cues a few times, but like I can't understand now why people have such an affection for some of those TOS cues, like our suspense trigger, for example, because it's like there's one that they play where it's I can't do music with my mouth, but it's like, for example, when the Enterprise is going in front of the comet in A Quality of Mercy, or when they're facing down the shepherds in episode 2. I have to let it play.
Thank you, Jade.
You summoned it.
I did.
This is your fault.
But yeah, it's like it just has strong incidental cues, and like it just builds to the identity of the show. It makes it feel distinct, and I felt that was also part of the problem with the 90s shows, which is that like as they went on and they just kind of diluted more and more, especially when you got to Voyager and Enterprise, where it's like these starting to feel like the strained through dregs of some TNG scripts we just didn't get around to making. Having your own distinct musical identity really helps you keep apart and stay separate.
Yeah.
And throw some Klingon acid punk every now and then.
Absolutely, which is actually on the Lower Deck soundtrack, and it's quite good. I quite enjoy myself a bit of acid punk. Okay, moving on. Tomorrow in the US, Canada, and Latin America, Lower Deck Season 3 starts. And on Friday for people on Prime Video, which I'm going to assume is the UK. I kind of hope it is. If not, we'll look at our way. But yes, it begins tomorrow. Season 3, picking up from the cliffhanger at the end of Season 2, where Captain Freeman gets arrested for allegedly blowing up the Packlet planet. I'm really excited for this season. You guys are big Lower Decks fans, I assume. Like, I know Stars is shy. I never really heard you talk about Lower Decks. Like, what was that for you going in?
When Lower Decks first premiered, I was a little worried after the pilot because it seemed like it was kind of Rick and Morty light. But it just takes a little time to acclimate to the cadence of the delivery. There's a lot of jokes per minute on Lower Decks, so there's a lot of visual gags. So it really only took like an episode or two to really fall in love with the episode. The show. I love Lower Decks. And I like all those actors who are doing the voices on Lower Decks. So it's a win-win in general.
Yeah, no, they really lucked out into grabbing Jack Quaid just as he became like really big from The Boys, didn't they? And it's like they're very similar characters in some ways, although I think Boimler has an easier time of it.
Yeah, and I think most of season 2 they all recorded like in COVID, so they're all recording in their own houses as well. So I'm kind of expecting a bit of a different energy for season 3 because I imagine they'll all be meeting up at least and sort of recording in person. So that's going to be exciting to hear the dynamic a bit more there. But would you be surprised to know? You probably do know this, but for those that don't, it was announced sort of just after the last time we did a Star Trek show that Lower Decks and Strange New Worlds will be getting a crossover episode. And just to add icing on that absolutely fantastic piece of cake, it's being directed by Jonathan Frakes. Like, could you just imagine, like, for anyone that loves, like, this era of New Trek, for anyone that loves Lower Decks and Strange New Worlds, just kind of going, yeah, we're just going to smash them together somehow. But apparently the what is going to happen is that Jack Quaid and Tawny Newsome. I remembered. Tawny Newsome are going to be portrayed in live action, and I can't wait for that because that's going to be amazing. Like, I don't know why they're not getting anyone else involved because I'm pretty much sure that having seen all the actors behind the voices, like they could play their characters without a doubt. Like,
well, it's partly because if you think about the logistics of it, if you're going to have any two characters from Lower Decks interacting with another cast, you want it to be the two main characters. Like, you would also love it if they could get Tandy and Rutherford, but they're also kind of harder to hide in an incognito fashion, which I imagine they're probably going to have to be because guess what? We're probably going to get Boimler and Mariner in Strange New Worlds outfits, which is going to be cool to see.
Yes.
Well, is this? Do we know if it's just a time travel episode or is this a holodeck flashback?
It's got to be time travel. I feel like it's time travel.
Yeah, I think holodeck might be a bit too easy to do. I think they'd want to send them back.
Because they'd be making fun of Enterprise though, which would sort of be right.
Oh, they'll have plenty of opportunities to do that. But no, I feel like if they're doing it in this way and they're hyping up as a big surprise, like, I think they're going to have it as a time travel thing, and it's going to be a legitimate crossover where it's part of the fabric of both.
I wonder when it's going to happen though, because it's obviously not. It's not. Well, would it happen in Strange New World season 2? It's not going to happen in in Lower Decks season 3. Like, I haven't actually said when it's going to happen or whether it's going to be.
I think it's Strange New Worlds Part 2. I think it's season 2 of season.
Is it going to be? Oh, interesting. Wow. Yeah, I actually cannot wait for that. For those that haven't seen, I think it was the Comic-Con a few months back. Jack Quaid and all the crew turned up in the Lower Decks uniforms. I think Jack Quaid even had his hair purple, and he did the pose from the naked time incident as well.
Naked time. Yeah, no, it's gonna be great fun. I was able to scar my boyfriend because I was like, "Oh, you ever think about that? There's something you haven't considered about the Strange New Worlds Lower Decks crossover," because he watches The Boys. And I was like, "Are you ready to confront the fact that Boimler is going to be played in live action and he's going to be attractive?" And he was like, "Oh, don't." Oh, Boimler. Because Jack Quaid's a good-looking guy, and it's a lot harder to get the.
In season 3 of The Boys, there is a scene where he's not wearing any clothes, so he's crossed that boundary.
Yeah, I remember him giving an interview where he said that stuff like seeing the naked time, like the episode, like where they're doing the full spread eagle, it's like that was nothing compared to what he'd been doing on The Boys. And he was wondering why some Star Trek fans were getting a bit annoyed about it. It's like, really, we've crossed this boundary many times before, and he's also not wrong. Guess what? The Polly Water episodes, they're just an excuse to be horny.
Hello, and welcome to Gene Roddenberry.
Couldn't be more in the spirit.
As a little aside, what has been remarked by newspapers as by Star Trek tabloids as a bromance. Jack Quaid, son of Dennis Quaid, and Ethan Peck, son of Gregory Peck, have apparently formed quite the friendship as their interaction. So it definitely sounds like it's going to be a lot more live action stuff. So
you haven't given it its proper name.
No, yeah, it has to be termed. What do you want? Do you want to give it? Come on, I've been hogging the limelight here. What is it called?
They have called it Spoimler.
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 Oh, I thought it was gonna be like Queck or something. But no, it makes sense that they'd be friends.
So, in the Spook versus Cock thing, you fall firmly on the Cock camp, do you?
Yeah.
We are the Queck. Resistance is futile. You will be absorbed into our bromance. Yeah, I'm
dear.
hyped for that. Very, very hyped for that. It's gonna be good. And so yeah, Lower Decks start next couple of days. Hyped, really hyped. I think like for any Star Trek show, that was the one that surprised me and just went, I need more of all of this. And I think I might try and do a very quick rewatch, but maybe not. Speaking of,
it's also a case of I was going to say I can't think of many other crossovers they've done in Star Trek really, apart from Birthright. Really.
Well, like in the premiere of DS9, right? They had a lot of the TNG crew
Quark turn up,
popping around. Yeah.
When you watch
Quark and Voyager, and
when you watch Broken Bow, did you feel like Zephyr Cochrane, obviously James Cromwell turning up was a bit of a cop-out? Were you waiting for like the proper Star Trek character to come across from Voyager somehow?
How?
I don't know.
It wouldn't have made sense. It wouldn't have made sense.
Yeah.
I was perfectly happy with Zephyr Cochrane.
They didn't do it with Discovery.
Enterprise is born out of First Contact, which is a pretty show.
True.
It's born out of that, and I thought it was completely appropriate. And they even bring reference to him in the Borg episode, so it all comes full circle. I'm fine with it.
Yeah. Just want Harry Kim there for some reason.
I always like how they cut around his existing footage from First Contact for the mirror episodes.
Oh yeah.
So they don't have to pay Cromwell
just get his feet
to come shoot anything new. Yeah.
Couldn't be more of a Star Trek thing. Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't do it with Discovery, and they haven't done it. That's kind of a tradition I wish they'd bring up more. Because since they've done like 5 new series, I would have loved them to do the whole tradition of a previous series' person come in to launch the new one. Like Discovery could have had someone from Enterprise as a cameo. That could have easily be done. They could have had T'Pol or Phlox or anyone come in to say, here's the new ship. Let's launch not like the old girl. That's McCoy in a nutshell. What you're talking about.
Yeah, but you don't want to just do it because you can do it. You want to do it because it does add to the wider texture of the actual universe and it makes sense. Doing it just to do it, I feel like, is
right. Plus,
you don't want to fall into that trap.
Discovery is bringing in characters that exist in other shows.
Yeah.
Like they have Spock is like a character, so you run into kind of a sticky wicket when you start to bring in like
maybe
legacy characters.
These are the Voyagers were so bad for bringing back old cast. They just went, no, we can't ever do that again. Look what happened. That just killed it.
Do you ever think about the fact that Star Wars and Star Trek learned almost the exact opposite lesson, where Star Wars did Solo and it backfired really badly, and they're like, "Oh, okay, we're not going to recast.
Solo
we're going to go for
though.
creepy." It was fine.
No,
I enjoyed Solo. Solo was good.
This is the spectrum of reactions to Solo.
I'm not here to talk about Star Wars. Get out of it.
And then they were like, "No, we're going to creepily reanimate Mark Hamill from 40 years ago. Deal with it." Whereas Star Trek had to deal with these are the Enterprise blowback and these are the Voyagers blowback, and now you will only ever get recast. We will not turn people into weird CGI puppets who refuse.
Yeah. Although I feel that cusp is happening with Picard. I feel like there's going to be something happen at some point because they can't get Tom Hardy back. He's too expensive. He's got that Venom money now.
I'll just cast someone else who can be bald. It's fine. Like,
plenty of people.
Every time I remember, every time I remember that Tom Hardy played young Picard, I'm like, yeah, sure he did. Yeah, whatever. These characters have no relation to each other, really.
I am upset. This is a Strange New World spoiler, I guess.
We're there.
Basically, I'm just going to say that they didn't cast James Frayne in Strange New World
as a certain character. Yeah,
that would have been.
That was a huge mistake.
That would have been inspired, but yeah.
The guy they got was great, but like the nudge, wink, wink would have been completely perfect.
As soon as I knew what episode they were doing, I was just like, and they were going to go, we're going to see the ship. I was like, is it James Frayne? Oh, it's not. Okay, never mind. Okay.
Anyway, you were talking about Smithsonian.
The Smithsonian. So we saw it in the. I was trying to. Getting there. We'll get there. In the intro video we saw with Uhura in the Smithsonian. The original studio model of the Enterprise, the 11-foot model that was used for filming, is coming back to the Smithsonian. For those that are nearby the area, obviously not me and Stars, again, screw the UK. But October the 14th, for those that do make regular trips out there or do make the journey and want to go and see the original 11-foot studio model, it will be at the Smithsonian October 14th. Unfortunately, Nichelle Nichols won't be there to guide you through it. However, you can pretend she was. How about that? Moving on.
It's beautiful to look at.
I've
hung out by it many times. I go to the Smithsonian every time. Have either of you been to the Smithsonian?
I've only been to America
in DC?
twice, and I went to Boston and then I went to Florida.
It's a great visit. That model has been so lovingly restored, and you can touch the moon rock, which I do every time I'm there.
Ooh.
But it's coming back because they did like a multi-year renovation of the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum.
Nice.
So they moved it out, but now it's
When the streaming money finally comes in, I'll come out there.
that's right. That's the charity
Yeah.
holiday
Trick
for
of Life.
Pride.
Where is the Smithsonian? Where is the Smithsonian? Is it in Washington?
America?
Washington D.C. Yeah,
Yes, there we go.
yeah.
Washington D.C. Yeah,
It's near the nuclear vessels.
Yes, I would like to go out there and see it. I think, and as well, Trek-Conderoga sounds absolutely amazing, and they're now doing TNG sets. Because for those that don't know, Ticonderoga, sorry, I keep wanting to say Tricorder, but it's Ticonderoga. You have the complete TOS Enterprise set. You go visit and have I think recently they did a tour with William Shatner himself doing, going around and talking.
Shatner, Brent Spiner, Gates McFadden were up there because Trek-Conderoga weekend was just this past weekend. So
wow.
They were all up there, yeah.
Yeah, and they're now building a TNG set, which sounds. Oh, I would really want to go and do that because that sounds amazing.
Yes. They're beautiful. I've been seeing the photos, the progress photos, and they're looking great. And they have the Akutas, working with them.
If you need anyone,
create
it
all
is
the
the
graphics.
Akutas. If anyone's going to know how to build that, they were there. They did it.
They live and breathe Elcars. Damn right they do.
Lacars. Okay, for those that missed it, there was a Picard Season 3 teaser released a few weeks back, which basically had a character shot of each of the each of the returning TNG characters and a little voiceover, including a very Stars' happiness, a renewed Worf, looking as he does, but with a few more greys attached to him. However, so there's new Season 3 teasers come out. They're now starting to promote that, yes, Season 3 is going to be the next generation. What they kind of should have done with Season 1 and 2, and now we've spoken about this before, how every season just seems to be a bit of a disjointed mess, much like the Star Wars sequel series, the sequel films.
Yeah.
Each film is its own little bit of a disjointed mess. The Star Trek producers went, yeah, we can do that with Picard. So there's gonna be basically a return of all the TNG cast, which we already knew, but it's nice to see them in their own appearance. And talking to the producer and talking to Gates McFadden and Patrick Stewart sat down recently at the recent comic. I think it was Comic-Con, wasn't it? That happened recently. They turned around and said, Crusher's going to be a much bigger part of it. For those that are going to go that whole will they, won't they, Ross and Rachel kind of thing with Picard and Crusher is going to be basically an evident feature of the early TNG series. We'll find out what happened. What did she go and take the captain hood of the USS Pasteur and go on from there, or was it something a bit more? And will Laris be giving her a bit of side eye from crushing grapes underneath her toes? Who knows?
So I think you're also kind of spot on with saying that Picard was born out of a want to do the Star Wars sequels. Partly because they've both done, I think, to a degree, a bit of damage to the franchise a bit. Picard is, I think, easily the weakest new Trek show. I don't think it hangs together quite well. I haven't seen Season 2, but I know kind of the broad strokes of it because of Twitter and talking to people, and I understand various different things about it. And right from the go, I'm like, ooh, I would not have made that choice about certain things.
Yeah.
That being said, there are still plenty of ideas that I like about them. There's plenty of characters that I like in them. But a complete lack of direction is the nicest thing I can say about it, considering the fact that it jumps from, here's a Season 1 done by Michael Chabon. It's all about Romulans and synths and this and that. And then it's we're going to jump around and do a Borg thing with time travel and this and that. And then we're going to do a Season 3 TNG revival. And it's it seems like it's kind of in the wrong order.
Yeah.
It seems like someone just said... It seems like someone at Paramount just went up to a whiteboard, wrote Star Trek Picard, and then someone just started throwing dots at different treatments that they had. And they're okay, we'll do it in that order. And it's guys, can you not have just waited? Can you not... why didn't you just do like one season and it was the one that everyone wanted to see, which was the TNG revival?
They came out and said like season
stick
1.
to your guns and do a new show.
Yeah, well, I mean, they came out in season 1. They said this is not going to be a TNG revival. This is just going to be this is Picard's story, and they did. They did. Season 1 was very much Picard's own story, and to an element, season 2 with a few extras like Seven thrown in, and then they've kind of just gone, oh yeah, no one wants this. Let's just do TNG, which we were just like, yeah, this is what we wanted.
Because the best episode of the first season of Picard is the
Nepenthe,
nostalgia episode where the Riker Troys come back.
See, that's the thing. I don't even think it's necessary. Nostalgia does definitely play a part into it, but it is also a case of I think it's just the best written of that season because it has an emotional through line. Everyone acts normally. No one is getting their eye ripped out. No one is abandoning their children because of Romulan conspiracies. It's just
killed off for no reason. R.I.P. Hugh.
Yes, it's just people existing in the 24th century, the very end of it anyway, and talking about Star Trek things like trauma and identity and moving past, experiences to become the fullest self you've ever been. And Troy finally being written correctly for the first time in fucking 30 years. It's not just nostalgia. Like, if you had changed it so that they were completely different characters who took Picard and Soji in out of the goodness of their hearts, that would have been fine, because the writing was still there. It was still evident in the quality. But it's because it is Riker and Troy that you get, like, it feels so cozy. It adds to the feel. But it's not the only thing that adds.
It does.
Yeah,
it feels... in that dinner table scene, we're all there. We've all been embraced by Riker, and he's just saying, here I am, and doesn't this feel better?
Yeah. And it's like, I understand that kind of fills a point where it's like, hey, look, you've had a traumatic season, now you get a breath of fresh air, but it's like, and then it has to end badly as well. And it's just, there are good ideas and good plot lines and individual parts that I can point to, but none of these, like season 1 and season 2, from what I can tell, they just do not hang together or have a consistent theme.
Season 2 starts off with a bang, and it just meanders.
It just peters out. Yeah, I've heard a lot of people say that it just doesn't have enough plot to sustain itself, and it's like... Which is...
I think it's like a little bit of, like, season 2 suffers from, this is what the previous showrunner was going to do, but now he's been degraded to this role because of things, and now Terry Matalas, who's, for those that have watched 12 Monkeys, which I've not, but I've heard it is exceedingly excellent, we had a lot of high hopes, and he's kind of a big Trek fan, so hopefully maybe him having more control over season 3, the final season might make it a bit more exciting, but then at this point it's like, it's a bit too late. Like, it's cool that we're getting 8 to 10 episodes, probably not even that, with the TNG cast, but is that enough? We want, this is what we wanted from the beginning, so well,
that's the thing. I didn't even necessarily want this from the beginning, because when they said this is going to be a new show with new characters, I was like, cool, that's fine. And then they didn't commit to it, and they treated those new characters really dismissively. Like, I've heard about what they've done to some of the characters in season 2, and I haven't had time to love them like I do, Riker or Torres or even Trip. Like, I haven't had the time to spend with Soji or Elma or Raffi to really love them.
A lot of angry
Rios is also
fans.
amazing. Well, yeah, because they just got treated with such utter dismissiveness, and it's like, yeah, I understand that you have to clear the decks in advance of season 3 because of the TNG revival you finally decided to do and could finally get everyone's shooting schedules in order. But did you have to be so dismissive and kind of cruel to some of those characters? Like, it doesn't really feel... Like, Star Trek doesn't feel like Star Trek when it's being cruel to the characters just to be cruel, or because it doesn't fit the wider plan. Like, that's why the Tasha Yar death or Jadzia Dax's death just doesn't it sticks in the craw and it doesn't feel right. And Trip
scenes,
as well.
Yeah.
Wait, Jadzia dies?
Oh, sorry, have you only
I
got
didn't want to be the one to tell you.
Oh, no.
Sorry.
By the way, they do kick the Dominion off the station.
Eventually. And it's like, you either just do it with a bit of class and keep those characters on the table so that if someone else wants to use them, they're free. Don't just throw your toys out of the pram so that no one can use these interesting characters in a more interesting way than you have, because it makes you look petulant. or like you don't have a plan. And I don't know,
you
like
evidence after people watched the first episode of season 2, but everyone just went, "When are we getting a Captain Rios Stargazer show? When is that happening?" It's just like, and everyone's just like, and the producer's like, "Hey." we missed on that one. Didn't realize he was so popular. It's like he's a Latin American handsome man commanding a starship that looks awesome. Like,
guess what?
that was
it's
a
almost
huge
like
misstep.
if you had taken the easy route of just putting him off to the side where someone else can use him later, you wouldn't have that issue. It's when you decide to be cruel and clear the decks and go, well, if I can't write them, nobody can. That's when people get annoyed. That's when it smacks of that Game of Thrones, we're going to kill characters for shock value type thing. And that's so...
We're done with this series now.
That's
We
so
want to go and write
2008,
Star Wars
to put it
sequels,
one
so
way.
let's just end it now. Oh, wait, what do you mean we won't get hired because the ending was terrible?
Yeah. I don't know. I hope that season 3 is going to be better. I hope it can salvage something out of it. If in the end of it you can say, well, season 3 was okay, then guess what? That's about on par for a Star Trek show now, isn't it?
The important question is,
at the very least...
The important question is, what do you think of Worf's new look?
Oh, he's incredibly hot.
Is it too much Silver Fox? Too much Silver Fox?
Never
Worf,
enough.
though?
Never.
I think
He's
I
very
prefer
white
Salt and
now,
Pepper
isn't he?
Worf.
He's got the white, the very
prefer
white.
Oh, what do you
Pepper
mean
Worf.
from...
The hair.
No, see,
like,
the thing is, the Salt and Pepper worked in All Good Things because he's kind of like out of favor with the Klingon Empire. He's just like a governor of some random colony. He's not the mover and shaker he used to be in TNG and DS9. But when you change it from Salt and Pepper into full-on white, he looks like a Daha Master. Like, if you told me that's Daha Master Worf, I'd be like, yes, no, that is what that shit looks like. That is
So he's
the
like-
ultimate
Yeah.
evolution,
Okay.
you know?
So he's
That's
Gandalf
why
the
it
White
works.
here.
Yes, exactly.
He's gone from Worf the Grey to Worf the White.
Wow.
Well, I'm also hoping that they will bother to advance this character so that he's not the same person he was at the end of DS9, and because he has grown, he should have the opportunity to maybe even lighten up a little bit. I'd like that for Worf because God knows he has a miserable life, and I'd like him to be able to enjoy what little bit he has left
So if
before
we
he
take...
gets killed off in season 3, episode 2.
So if let's not do that. If we take the prequel Picard book, which has not been contradicted, I always kind of it directly sort of sets up the events of the attacks on Mars and the Romulan relocation effort, things like that. So it is directly a prequel to the series and hasn't really been contradicted by anything on screen, but it could. So it's kind of what I call semi-canon, where it's sort of we know it's non-canon, but it might as well be the official record, and unless proven otherwise. In that, when he moves over to a new starship, the USS Verity, when Picard gets promoted to Admiral to do the Romulan relief effort, he promotes Worf to Captain of the Enterprise. So I wonder if that's also going to be a through line, because there is him and Geordi sporting yet another new uniform because they can't help themselves. Someone in the costuming buzzer is just like, we need more money, come on. So yeah, I wonder if they are going to say he is or has been, because it's been quite some time, the Enterprise's captain, or whether they will, and there we go. Right, Michael Dorn, you wanted your Captain Worf series, and there we go. It's a mention.
It happened in the in-between.
It did.
I wouldn't mind if he was made captain of it, but it's also a case of... I don't know, I was always fine with the idea of Worf. Worf never felt like he needed captaincy. It was all more about... What is captaincy of a starship compared to managing to preserve the Klingon Empire, really? To being Chancellor for those moments and then passing it into the hands of Martok and proving that you are... the Klingon that you always said you were going to be.
I presume he is in him and Geordi are in Starfleet uniforms. I'm going to presume, because they've kind of got little rank pips and things like that. So I'm going to assume he is still Starfleet bound. So I imagine what happens in All Good Things, where he goes back to the Klingon Empire, has not happened. So
that was always portrayed as a bad future. So I always assumed it was a case of Worf belongs in Starfleet. It's even though he has his issues with it, it's where he belongs.
Well, he might have gone. He might have done that. He might have taken leave of absence and then come back. It could explain why he's not an admiral, Worf.
True.
At this point.
To be fair, I don't think you'd want Admiral Worf around because he'd be like, we should kill them. And then they'd be like, Worf, we've talked about this. He's
Not
just like,
again.
no, we should kill them. And it's like, and he'd be like, I'm right though. And they're like, you can't just say that in front of the Tellarites. They get upset. We should kill them.
We should get them.
Trick
to the opposition.
We should kill them. Damn right. Trekkie for life. A Daha Master is a rank accorded to a Klingon once they have basically achieved certain glorious acts and valorous deeds, sort of.
Yes.
It was a rank given to the TOS Klingons, Kang, Kor, and Koloth,
who are all in the
when they appeared in
DS9
DS9.
Season 3
Blood
episode,
Oath.
Blood Oath,
Yes.
where
Season
they
2,
are.
yeah.
You will find out more about Daha Master. It's a very good episode, and does feature
Yeah.
all the returning Klingons from the original series.
Yeah, and there's not a ton of detail about what exactly a Daha Master is, but it's assumed that it's a case of it's like being knighted Knight of the British Empire or whatever.
I think it's a bit more combat
Right.
prowess than that. I think they've probably,
probably,
it's essentially that. It's a knight of the round table, but you're also a black belt. There's very much a implication that if anyone starts some shit,
It's a
you take
certified
them down.
badass label.
Yeah,
basically,
the
is what it is.
dojo master, sort of almost like a martial arts sort of title, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
But
yeah,
I'm also really
go on.
the fact that Crusher is finally getting her due. Like Christ,
Huzzah. We'll get
after
that question
7
answered,
seasons and
hopefully.
4 movies, she got the least, almost the least to do out of everyone in all the TNG movies, and it was a shame because Gates McFadden is a really good actress, when she's given the right material, and her chemistry with Patrick Stewart is off the fucking scale. So it's about time we actually finally lean into that.
Right. Plus, Crusher was always the most effective, captain of the Enterprise outside of.
Oh yeah, incredible track record.
Yeah.
Her batting average. Yeah.
1 for 1.
Yeah, no, pretty much.
100% success.
I talked previously about the fact that I'm pretty sure of all the characters in all of Star Trek, she has never shown to miss a shot. She is incredible, 100% accuracy. And every time she's in command of the Enterprise, she knocks it out of the fucking park, and she does her goddamn job. She's awesome.
Even the Pasteur, that's why she made Captain of the Pasteur. It's like, look, I've got this great track record, never lose. Deadeye Crusher.
It's true. It's very true.
Okay.
And I'm really hoping they don't go the easy route and because Geordie has a child, or maybe
He
children.
was actually played by his own daughter as well.
Yes, which is cool. I just hope that it's not. Please don't go the easy route and make it Leia Brahms. Don't do
It's
it.
completely.
Don't
it's
do
Leia
it.
Brahms. It is.
Don't do it.
Deal
Don't
with
do it, man.
No, it's hologram.
I
They
don't
found a
wanna
way
deal
to
with it.
procreate using using a hologram.
Oh no, not the holographic gene splicing era has begun. Christ.
His daughter's a figment of his imagination. It's all holograms. It's like the Doctor's simulation. He's done that. He lives in a holodeck. No, they wouldn't do that. I hope.
No, that's what Reg is doing. That's what Barclay's doing right now.
Really?
That's what I'll accept that as an ending for Barclay. He's trapped in a holodeck and he can't get out. Doesn't want to get out.
There's a cameo you don't want, considering
Well,
how
yeah.
right-wing nut job he's gone lately.
Yeah.
That's all we have for news and things upcoming. That went on a lot longer than I thought it would. But yeah, a lot going on. The last thing. There's always so much going on Trek. There's always something new. There's a
Well, now there is. If we were doing this show back in 2009, we wouldn't have a lot to talk about now, would we?
I kind of think it's never really stopped. There's always been a news and rumors and things to talk about, since Enterprise finished. Because as soon as it finished, people were like, they're going to do a movie. I'm like, oh wow, okay. Okay, so we are now into our talk about a film section. Last time we did Generations. This time we're going to go with Jonathan Frakes' magnum opus, by far one of my favourite Star Trek films, and a lot of people's as well. Star Trek First Contact, which debuted in 1997, was the first fully TNG film. Sorry?
1996.
It was... yes, you're right. Sorry, my bad. 96, you are correct, of course, because it's 2 years after Generations was 94.
And also, you saying that it's Jonathan Frakes' magnum opus, this is blatant Thunderbirds movie erasure.
I never would. Is that good?
No, it's awful.
Right, I was going to say...
Terrible!
I forgot he did that. Wow. But yeah, would you like a fun fact to start us off? Did you know this was
Always. I
originally
love
going to
fun
be
facts.
set in the Italian Renaissance? They weren't going to go back to World War III. They were going to go back to the Italian Renaissance, and Data would have met Leonardo da Vinci. But they realised
that is straight up going straight into this is a two-parter episode area right there.
The Borg would have invaded ancient Earth at that point. And I think there was another option where they were going to go back even earlier, or they were going to go back to like modern times, but they just eventually spun up like, you know what we don't know much about? I think it was Ron Moore came up and just said like, we know nothing about Zefram Cochrane's era. Let's do that. And I think the producers are like, right, we want to do a Borg episode and we want to do a time travel episode, and then just handed it over and said, make that work. And then like I think it was Ron Moore and Brandon Braga were just like, okay, let's do this.
Is this why we have so many Da Vinci episodes on Voyager? Because they had this leftover concept.
Yeah, probably.
And they were just like, we still want to have Da Vinci, so.
Well, I mean, it's always been obsessed with Da Vinci going back to Flint in TOS, right?
Right.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's Flint all the way down, isn't it?
He can't escape him.
He's like the Doctor Who of the time, wasn't he? Okay.
Yeah, basically.
Bonus points for you guys, not that the points going, but can you name me 2 of the original titles this film went by before it was dubbed First Contact?
I remember Generations 2. I remember
Correct,
those titles were just fucking awful. That's an awful
title. That was even on a promotional video. They're saying Generations 2. I'm like, how? What? No, okay.
Really? You want to remind people of Generations and the bridge? Other one. Shy, can you guess? I'm coming up blank here.
Is it Times Arrow 2?
No, it's not. No, this one.
Star Trek Renaissance?
No, not quite.
No.
So this came up and was changed due to. Let me just double check this before I go on to
Star Trek Independence Day.
No. Hang on, I'm gonna have to.
Battlefield Earth, Star Trek Battlefield Earth.
That one's a better one.
Hang on. I just got to quickly make sure I'm getting the right film here because. Hang on. Where is it? Oh no, I've just hit my Gmail. So there was a film coming around.
Assignment Earth or whatever it is with the R7.
No, there was a film coming out around about the same time, but one of the original names that nearly went to print was Star Trek Resurrection, and this was the hotly rumoured name of the show. But a film came out fairly recently as they were filming or going through early production that made them think, oh, we can't do that. That's too similar. And bear with me while I try and find out what that film was actually going to be.
Oh, Christ.
Would it have been Alien Resurrection?
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Correct. Thank you.
Ooh.
Yeah, so that was too close to Alien Resurrection, and they said, let's not do that. And so they came up with the name First Contact, which is actually the better name, really.
It's perfect. Tricky for Life, I'm saying Renaissance because I'm British.
Yes, that's how you say it, Renaissance. For
it's not. I know it's also Renaissance.
Renaissance.
But guess what? I can say words in whatever word I like.
What fun languages.
Yeah, I know, right? What a fucking great movie.
So
is
good.
First Contact just not the fucking best? Like, if you really want to light a bomb in a room, you just ask what's better, Wrath of Khan or First Contact. And I feel like most of the time, Wrath of Khan does come out on top, but it's close. It's close, man. It's such a good movie.
I don't know if it's close, but it's definitely. I put First Contact as a third. As the third best.
What would be your second one then?
I put 6. I put.
Okay.
Undiscovered Country.
That's a good answer, actually. Yeah. Yeah, no, First Contact's great. I remember going to the cinema and seeing this. I think this was one of the first. This was the first Trek film I saw at the cinema when I was old enough. I didn't see Generations because I wasn't as into Trek then. I think I was just getting into it. I remember seeing that on television of all things, with adverts and all back in those days. Before streaming. You remember that, Grandad? It's the equivalent of black and white television for our grandparents, isn't it? Before you could get it on demand. So, yeah, I remember going to the cinema, seeing it with my dad and watching it and just going, this is amazing. Because I remember getting the Star Trek magazine. As soon as I read, they're making a film about the Borg, how old was I? 11-year-old mind just went mad. I was just like, oh my God, they're making a film with the Borg in it. Oh, this is going to be incredible. This is going to be amazing. And I remember seeing it at the cinema. But the problem was the guy sitting behind us was, and this is British cinemas. British cinemas are quiet. civil affairs. No one gets up, no one claps, there's no cheering. If you make a noise, you will be tutted into silence. Someone will give you a disapproving look and you will shut the fuck up as accordingly. But behind us sat this man and his son, and every time Worf, you'd be happy, Stars, because every time Worf did something, he's like, yeah, Worf, go Worf! And like, as soon as he got that moment
It was
where
me
Worf,
from the future.
Were they Americans?
They weren't. No, they're British. But as soon as he did the whole assimilate this section, he's like, "Yeah, Wolf!" And my dad turned around and just went, "When you shut the fuck up!" to this guy in the cinema, and I'll never forget that because it's the first time I heard my dad swear.
Oh wow, that's pretty great.
Yeah. But,
yeah, New York audiences are not like that. If something bad is happening in a movie, they will let the screen know that something bad is happening.
It's so pointless. Like, what's it going to do? Like, contain your excitement.
Well, I'll tell you, seeing Attack of the Clones with the New York audience opening weekend is one of the best times I've ever had.
Oh, wow.
Because the audience is just destroying this movie. The sand, I hate sand scene.
I can imagine.
I've never heard an audience roar with so much laughter and derision.
I feel like if you did a re-release of Attack of the Clones nowadays, you would absolutely get the Rocky Horror Picture Show treatment, where people were just reciting it line by line.
Absolutely.
The kids love that movie now. Yeah. The prequels have their own renaissance.
Yeah.
Going.
So, there's a lot to talk about with this movie. So, Jonathan Frakes is kind of underrated, and I don't know if people are aware of this, but he has the nickname of Two Takes Frakes, because he gets in there, he does the job, it's under budget, and it's shot well. He does not fuck around, he just does it well, and that's why he's so well regarded as a TV director, and why they keep on bringing him back for the new shows, because he's incredibly professional, he knows the material, and he just does it. He does
Everyone loves him as well.
Yeah.
Like, you hear a lot of people talking about him on set, and he's just a very warm personality, and people say, oh, good, yeah, Johnny's working with us. Fantastic.
There's a really great blooper I saw of, I think it's Discovery Season 2, of someone getting a cue off screen, and then he responds to it in the line in full Riker voice, and then everyone has to just stop and be like, Mr. Frakes, you're not part of this. He's like, oh, fuck, goddammit. And it's like, I feel like it's the advantage of being an actor who was like, because this was a great thing about Star Trek back in the day, was that you would be able to direct episodes depending on availability. Like, almost everyone got a chance. Gates McFadden, Michael Dorn, LeVar Burton, God, what's the name? How am I blanking on the name? Roxanne Dawson, yeah. And like, Roxanne Dawson, Robbie Duncan McNeil, and Jonathan Frakes kind of got the biggest career boost out of that, and they almost seem more comfortable now as directors than they did as actors, even though I think all three of those actors did great work in their various different capacities on the shows. And his style is just, it really serves this film well, because you have to get a lot of exposition done really quickly. And I was watching it today, because ahead of the time, and I was like, this opening sequence, which is like one of the most iconic ones in all of movies, the opening with the a close up on Picard's eye, and then the zoom out with the Jerry Goldsmith score,
very evocative.
And it's like, in about 5 seconds, you get your villain established almost immediately. You get a visual style that basically persists throughout the entire show. You've got your main character established. You establish your trauma, which is going to be the big driving force of Picard's character throughout the movie. You establish that it was time enough ago that he's wearing a different uniform, but that it's evolved into the new uniforms, which I think they were designed for this movie, and they've never looked better than this movie. I think that the First Contact uniforms are just perfect in this movie. They suit the color palette of the new Enterprise sets just wonderfully. There's a perfect synergy going on there. And it's just, in the course of about 20 seconds, you know what Picard's deal is. You even get that jump scare so that you know there's going to be a bit of horror in this one. And it's like, in the space of 20-30 seconds, you have everything established, basically. You have, we talk about how you could take certain scenes out of context, like the opening of Star Trek 09, or the opening of Star Trek Generations, and make them a short track. If you wanted to do First Contact just through visuals, you would have to take basically this entire sequence, because it's just such a good iconography, top down, of what the movie is about. And kind of dovetailing into that, the effects in this movie are fucking phenomenal.
Really good.
Industrial Light and Magic, who
ILM,
you guys
isn't it?
might know better as
Yeah.
the guys who do the effects on Star Wars, they cannot be topped. There is no one better than them in the industry, and the Enterprise has never looked better. And I feel like this dovetails with a conversation you guys have had with me before. Physical models, they will never be matched. Everything in this movie, I'm pretty sure, with the exception of a few things, is pretty much all physical models, at least when it comes to ship stuff. So the Enterprise E, the Defiant, all the brand new Sector 001 models that they created, the Borg Sphere, the Phoenix,
Kira,
all of it is like...
We get all those new ships.
Get the Norway, all of them. It's just like it looks so good. Like that's part of the reason why Battle of Sector 001, it goes on for maybe 2 minutes. It's one of the shortest like space battles in all of Trek, but because it looks so good and you convey again, it's that efficiency of storytelling where I love that opening shot of the Borg cube, where it's like you get imposing sheet of like unending metal, camera pans over, defenseless Earth, and then just bam, 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 photon torpedoes. It's like it's visual storytelling at its height. Like that's what you need. It tells a story in a case about 3 seconds, and then you get to get into the details and the character, and it's just wonderful efficiency of storytelling. It's just so good, and there's so much good horror makeup going on in here, so much good prosthetic work,
the scene
so much
with,
good practical
with
stuff.
Alex Creech coming down, as the Borg Queen, and they lower her into the bodysuit. Like that's the first time, I've come off, watching Terminator 2, and they're coming to see this, and I'm just like, oh my god, like that. How did they do that? And like being introduced to the concept of green screen for the first time, like wrapping someone up and like taking their body out, like it's like, oh, that's amazing, and that holds up. And I've watched First Contact fairly recently as an effect, like because a lot of it's very physical, it holds up very, very well.
Yeah. You mentioned the Cronenberg-esque body horror elements in this movie when the crew is getting assimilated and sort of having their bodies chopped up and Borgified. There's a nice rawness to this movie. Frakes, like the makeup is very minimal, even from the get-go. Everyone kind of has like a sheen on their skin, like you can kind of see the sheen of sweat. So it sort of sets the tension even before they engage the Borg. Like everyone's their skin's glistening. Data too for some reason, but whatever.
Artistic license, I'll allow it.
Emulated. It's human.
It's fine. But Frakes immediately. You mentioned the pan out shot from Picard's eye, and then it goes through the Borg ship, and then he's playing around with different camera angles and different aspect ratios and different lenses just right up the front. He's really going for it on his first real big budget feature film,
because he wasn't even the first choice. Like they offered it to quite a few high profile
Ridley Scott, I think, actually was one of them,
and everyone turned around and went, "Ooh, Trek, no!" And they went, "Do you want to go?"
I mean, I can't lie.
Yeah,
I would have loved to have seen Ridley Scott direct this movie. It would have been amazing.
He's
but
too busy doing the superior Alien Resurrection, of course.
Yeah,
he wasn't involved in that. I don't think.
No, he didn't do that. That was
the director of Amelie. Weirdly enough,
Amelie. Yeah,
okay.
So weird.
Well, he directed Alien Resurrection, and then he made up for it by directing Amelie.
Okay.
Because I was like, this is the only way you could recover is by making this charming little manic pixie dream girl movie. But back to First Contact. Yeah, it's just. Do we think Riker has any idea what classical music piece this is, or does he just throw out Bizet? Because it's like only classical music.
I mean, Riker doesn't strike me as a classical music. He's a jazz guy. That's what he's all about.
Okay. He might have
I
had a
remember
bit
when
of
they
exposure,
established in Lower
maybe.
Decks,
Yeah.
they established all the shuttles on the Titan are named after jazz musicians, which I thought was hilarious.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
If you told him to identify the difference between like a 1935 like New Orleans piece and a 1940s like Harlem piece, he'd be able to tell you in an extensive dissertation.
Yeah.
But you ask him to tell the difference between Bizet and Berlioz, he's like,
I want to seem not entirely uncultured in front of my captain, so I'm just going to throw out a classical name.
After how many years they've served together, he's still got that trepidation of just being like, I need to say something. It's like when you're in a meeting, you need to say something, even if it's wrong, just to provide something to the context,
Yeah. And incidentally, for our audience, if you have seen First Contact a million times, as you should have, if you haven't seen it, go watch it. It's fucking incredible. Watch it with the commentary by Jonathan Frakes, because Jonathan Frakes does some of my favorite commentary ever. The one on Insurrection is hilarious because he does it with Marina Sirtis, and you can really tell that they have actual chemistry. Like they've been acting a relationship out for like 20 years. You can tell they have that chemistry, and it's really funny. And you get to hear Jonathan Frakes be really self-deprecating. But if you want to hear a guy just talk about the craft, about how you make a movie, and about the connections that go on, and about him just like every now and then, like when he has that thing like Bizet, Berlioz, when he just goes, "Oh, you fucking idiot! How do you not know this?" He's just got a great sense of humor, and if you want another fun thing, that scene in the bar where he's talking with Troy and Cochrane, just watch it through again, but only pay attention to Jonathan Frakes' face. Because there's something about Jonathan Frakes when he's in a comedic scene, if you just watch his face, he is a really underrated physical performer in terms of like... He's kind of like Anson Mount, how we were talking about his facial expressions in Spock and Mock. He's just like having so much fun watching them and reacting. He's just hilarious.
I was going to say I thought he was a little muggy there. And I think it's...
But
I think it's
a muggy guy.
He's a muggy... Frakes is a muggy actor, and I think... But it's partially the result of when you're directing yourself. You're not there to watch yourself on screen, so he's like, there's a lot of just he's reacting to what they're saying as he should, but it's very big, but it's fine.
Love the whole his reaction when Troy falls in the bar and he does the perfect, almost in time with her.
I've talked about this. I have to wonder how hard they worked to get that timing down on the like. She immediately hits her floor and he goes. Just to the comedic time is incredible. Can we just talk about the Jerry Goldsmith score for this movie? It's so good.
For a film about quite a menacing like antagonist, the theme song, the actual theme for the film, is quite upbeat and quite sort of in a major key. There's a very sort of light-hearted sort of theme song with not quite got the gravitas you expect for sort of such a epic action film, is essentially what this is. It is an action film.
Yeah, but it's the same thing for Wrath of Khan, right? Like the Kirk themes, the Enterprise themes are like they're very bright, they're shiny, and then when Khan's theme comes in, they're dark. And here it's about the hope for the future. So you get that bright theme, and then the Borg comes in with these ominous tones.
You can definitely see some of the footprints from the motion picture on this score, not just because he uses the Klingon theme for Worf, which I think was an amazing use of that, but it's also a case of like some of the tones that he uses to express the Borg musically are very reminiscent of Vija, which is why some people have tied that together in extra canon. But
even the first shot is very Vija-esque.
Yes, extremely, with that wide thing. That's what happens when you have good Vija-esque special effects, but you have a sense of restraint idle.
You mean it's only 30 seconds versus 30 minutes?
Trekkie for life. If you've only seen First Contact once, watch it through again, and then watch it through a third time with Jonathan Frakes' commentary. It's amazing. And now that you know what we mean about incidental music, just try and tune out some of the dialogue and just take in the music, because
the Borg theme, the whole menacing, when you see the Borg who comes out, makes an appearance in, I won't spoil it, but it makes an appearance in season 2 of Picard in a really good way. Like, that's one of my complimentary parts of that, is when that theme comes back and you're just like, oh, that's the Borg theme, that's the Borg's music.
It's the Borg. Because you get the Red Alert theme, which I think is great, with when they play the transmission from the Starfleet attack group as they're about to engage with the Borg. And it goes into this really great Enterprise theme, which is distinct from all the other Enterprise themes. It's very big and very heroic. You've got Approaching Engineering, which is a really nice little tense piece as they're just walking through the ship. And it's like, that's an example of just how much a really good musical cue can elevate what is otherwise just people walking through a set. It's just into the building tension, the Borg cues. And the First Contact theme is so nice. It's such a gorgeous expression of humanity. And I feel like that's part of the reason why, even though this is essentially an action horror film, people hold it in such high regard as a Star Trek film, because even though it is quite violent and dark, it's all about, it believes in the ethos of the Federation. It believes in the promise of being better. It believes that by meeting other races and understanding more about ourselves, we become better. And that theme is very much about expressing that. So while the Borg are all part of the movie. They are not the focus. That's why it's not called Star Trek Borg or Star Trek Assimilation. It is about First Contact, and everything is about reinforcing that theme of growth and humanity coming out of its infancy, as it were. And that's why I think people hold it in such high regard, because it has really dense theming and actual narrative depth to it, which, not to say that other Star Trek movies don't, but like I feel like that's why I elevate it to on the level of Wrath of Khan, because it has some of that depth of character and theming and what it says about the franchise, as it were.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Borg represents sort of the loss of humanity and like having your humanity stripped away, and Picard is on the verge of losing his humanity there, and then Lily pulls him from the edge by with the little Moby Dick quote. Exactly. And makes him realize that you can't sacrifice humanity to defeat this menace. You have to keep hold on to it, or else what is it all worth? But speaking of villains, like great villains, and the reason why this is close to Wrath of Khan is because it is one of the two best Star Trek villains for me. Introduced.
Oh, easily.
I don't know. I don't know if we have a discussion order here. I don't have access to the show notes.
I have no order for this. That's fine.
It's free form. Don't worry about it.
Alice Krieg just comes in here like throwing major heat. she's throwing like fastballs down the lane so fast. She's so good in this movie. She's proto ASMRing left and right. It's like
there's a lot of ear contact, isn't there?
Yeah.
A lot of blowing hairs on synthetic flesh, as it were.
Yeah. And she understands the assignment. She's like, I'm going to chew this scenery just
I wouldn't even
the
say
right
it's
amount.
chewing scenery. This is like delicately eating scenery and then just producing a steak as she like replicates it back out. She's chewing it for the benefit of us to eat later in a weird regurgitation bird metaphor there. I don't know why I'm going with that.
Yeah. It's such a patient performance. Yeah.
Yeah, no, she bounces off of Brent Spiner incredibly well, and she just has this wonderful charisma where it's about the allure of technology, and to a degree, I think kind of like it's playing into. I don't know if it's quite a theme, because it's like Star Trek is very much about technology making your life better, and it's not very Luddite. But there's almost a degree of the closer you get to technology. There's a fine line to be stepped, essentially, in terms of how much you allow it to control your lives and become part of it. They kind of play more into that insurrection as it happens, but it's a little bit in here. You kind of got to have that balance. Now, can I ask you guys a question? Is there a single movie that would not be improved by just adding Alfred Woodard to it? I think that she is such a consistently amazing performer in every movie she's in. She's just always great.
I've only seen her in this, and she had a brief part in Captain America: Civil War, but she was also had an extended feature in the Luke Cage series, and she was great in that. Really,
she's so good in that.
That's the only things I've seen her in. I've not seen her in anything else. I don't think I have. I probably have seen her in something and then not connected the dots and gone, oh, it's Lily.
She's an amazing actress. Like, go watch her entire filmography. You will not regret it. Yeah, I don't know what that metaphor was either. Tricky for life.
My brain works in weird ways.
It does. But yeah, it says all that you need to know about the movie. That it's like Picard spends like most of it like talking about how good humanity is in the 24th century, but it takes a 21st century human to bring him back from the brink, because it's not about how evolved you are. It's about the essential quality of humanity, of letting go and moving on with your life and not allowing the past to control you, which is essential. That's not tied to any particular time period.
So, okay, let's go for favorite scenes. Now, I have to say, one of I mean, you could just say this entire film, and I'd let you have it. That's fine, because that is an acceptable answer. But a favorite individual, I really like the scene where they've been told to stay near the Romulan neutral zone, and and they go onto the bridge and they're listening to all the transmissions from the fight with the Borg, and you just get that pan across everyone's faces as it scans across, and you just sitting there getting those transmissions. There's no music, it's dead silence apart from this, and you're just getting essentially a big reaction shot before Picard finally flips and just goes, "I'm disobeying orders," and you get that "to hell with our orders, sir" from Data. So in that ultimate triumphant moment that sets up for that, the glorious return of the Enterprise.
Yeah, there's like some. I think something that's underrated about this movie is there's a really awesome sound design, like in terms of the sounds of, say, like the quantum torpedoes, which I think debuted in this movie. Whereas, like, I imagine watching that in the cinema with the big Dolby sounds like the. You get your really big phaser noises. You get all the the Borg implant noises and the chunks and all the various different. It's just a very evocative movie when it comes to like the sounds and like the feeling of this future. And that transmission where you just have all that Starfleet back and forth going back, and then it just cuts out, and then that Borg transmission.
Because I didn't think you ever hear like starships talking to each other ever really, do you? There is no.
Not usually. No, usually
I can't remember another
just, like,
time
on
when you
the
do
bridge.
hear a fleet communication in any other iteration before this. Can you? Is there
Yeah,
You get a little bit of it in Star Trek 4 when everyone's reporting on
that's
like
true.
what's
Okay,
happening
yeah,
with their
that's
ships,
right.
like in the
Yeah.
command. But yeah, this is the filmmakers saying we kind of teased this in Best of Both Worlds when we showed you the remains of the ships at Wolf 359. So we're going to show you what an actual fight against the Borg looks like, and it's as you mentioned earlier. Stars, the special effects here. This sequence is beautiful. It's just flawless.
And it's a really nice evolution of continuity as well, because you do get to see a tiny sliver of Wolf 359 in the beginning of DS9. And you can see Starfleet trying these just fucking, like, you know, go in one at a time, like, you take your shot, keep your fire lines separate so that you don't end up taking fire from each other. You know, conventional tactics that would work against the Klingons or the Romulans or the Cardassians in a big fleet maneuver. And then, guess what? They got fucking ruined. Like, that Excelsior class comes up, the saucer just gets blown in half, and it's like, that just doesn't work against them. And then you get to see the absolute tail end of this fight, which has been going on for hours. Like, I feel like that's an underrated part of the things.
Yeah, it's 3 hours. It's 3 hours to Earth, maximum warp.
Exactly. It's like they've been fighting across the Federation. And you could easily make the argument that maybe all the ships that are there are ones that join the battle later, or that are just the remains of it. But it's like, that also adds to the Defiant. Like, the Defiant managed to stay in there for full 3 hours against a Borg cube before it got too badly damaged to continue.
Tough little ship.
And just seeing them swarming that Borg cube and just going at it from every angle, you just see, it's really cool to see Starfleet adapt in like a kind of a visual sense and grow.
Yeah. And when Picard
says it's a great...
Yeah, go on.
It's just a great intro for the new ship. You know, I like the Enterprise E, and it comes in and it's such a badass. It's such a badass. You know, redesigned by Ed Barecki.
John Eves as well. I think he had a hand in it.
Yeah, Johnny Eves. Yeah, exactly. And it's just it's so badass. They're not even concerned that they're taking shots for the Borg cube. He's just talking to the fleet, like saving the Defiant.
Yeah.
Like there's no panic. He's like, he knows what the ship can do. Yeah,
he knows where to hit them. But
the visual storytelling is on point, because you get that, you know, it's the Enterprise, it swoops across. It's the biggest hero shot in all of. I think that's on par with like the Millennium Falcon in like New Hope type thing, where it's just like such a hero shot. It's the only ship that still has shields. Everyone else has lost their shields. You just get that big bubble shield effect, which is awesome. And then you get the big fleet firing all at once, which is just such a cool get fucked out of here moment.
Very physical, where it just all the torpedoes slam into that one area, and you see it gouging out, and they're like, "Oh shit, we can't recover from this."
Yeah, it's one of those things where I watched this with when I was watching through Trek with Brody and Katie. We did all of TNG, and then we did the movies. We didn't watch DS9 after. So when the Enterprise E just comes out of nowhere, just does that thing, and when it fires quantum torpedoes, you just get that big sound. It's like, for someone who has only ever seen like photon torpedoes and phasers, it's like, wow, what the fuck is that? What are we even firing at them? And it's like, you just get such a feel for the strength and the majesty of the Enterprise E, which, like, you only got to see it for 3 movies, but I feel like everyone loves the Enterprise E. I don't think anyone has any bad things to say about it.
I was absolutely, when they first sort of revealed the design of it and then seeing it in action, I was in love with it. Like, I wanted them to do about 30 films of just that ship. It was they nailed the look. And I had a book once, I don't know whatever happened to it, that went through the design process of the Enterprise E. And there's an infamous story about how they had the pylons on facing forwards, and they nearly went to production with it until someone went round and went, that looks like a chicken that's been tied up, gone in the oven. Right, okay, we need to change this. Put the pylons so they're moving backwards, and then there's a you have a look at Memory Alpha. That's on there, a picture of one of the original concepts of the Enterprise E. And originally they were going to try and do like a more sort of streamlined Galaxy class until they sort of went really streamlined. And I think for your hero ship to be of something new, to be of a film ship, that is what you want.
It just looks muscular, you know. It looks slim and lean and fast. It just like I love the Starfleet design ethos that Matt Jeffries laid out, because it's so easy to iterate on it and make it either more primitive or more advanced depending on what you do with it. Because you had the TOS Connie, right, which is just so iconic. But then it's just like, hey, what if we shorten down the neck? What if we pull out the saucer so it's more of like an arrowhead? What if we like pull out the nacelles and change that?
It's an arrow, isn't it?
You
That's
could
what
iterate.
It me of, yeah.
It looks sleek. It has that intrepid kind of design look to it.
Yeah, like I don't actually like the sort of oblong philosophy that we see in Voyager, but for some reason on the Enterprise E, it completely works. Like
More edges. Voyager's, you put Voyager next to Enterprise E, the Voyager looks a little chunky, doesn't it? It looks like sort of a bit more of
it's too front heavy
of a starship.
Like
it's a little bit front heavy,
because of the length of the cells on the E. It's got that balance. It just hits that golden ratio. Just
I love a ship with majestic nacelles. Did you also know? Yeah.
It's smaller than the Galaxy class, right?
Yeah.
Like technically,
I think it's longer but thinner. I think
it's definitely not. Yeah, it's like
yeah. I mean, unless you're watching Nemesis, in which case it's just infinitely deep.
Well, we don't talk about that. Cranky says they changed this like last minute. I think they have a middle order that was how it's meant to be made. I think the Nova class, the USS Equinox, I think that was one of the original designs for the Enterprise E, and you can really see that it's part of the same design lineage. And I really like the Nova class. I think it's it's almost wasted for just a plain science vessel for how cool it looks. Yeah. But it's a nice, cool bit of fleet design. There are a few I feel like it's one of those things where you kind of judge a starship on how many angles it looks good from. And that's why I feel like the TOS Connie almost always comes out on top, because there's no angle it looks bad from. Like if you catch it from the back or the side or from the top down, it always looks like great. But Enterprise E has a few angles where it looks a little bit funky, like a little bit, but it's just a case of like very few. It's still an incredibly sleek and gorgeous ship. And I appreciate that you get to see it in pristine order for all about 10 minutes before it starts getting fucked up.
Yeah, the Borg board and everything gets knocked out.
You understand why Picard's so angry, because they're scratched the paint on his new ship.
It's only been out a year.
Yeah, it's been a year out of dry dock. They say that at the start, didn't they?
Yeah. One other thing I want to bring up, I appreciate Neil McDonough, and I wish he would get full, proper, good...
Thank you,
nice. I appreciate Neil McDonough, who plays Lieutenant Hawk in this. Yeah. I really wish he would get full, proper, good film roles. No, Resident Evil does not count. That movie was fucking atrocious.
He's on
a bunch of CW shows.
Yeah, he does Damien Dark. He's pretty cool in that. I remember watching that. He's a pretty campy villain.
Yeah, but it's like, I feel like he's a really talented actor and he does more, you know?
He was in the Captain America film as well. So he
was he?
He was Dum Dum Dugan.
Oh God,
right.
Wow, I don't remember that. Wow.
Yeah, he was.
That's weird.
Which, he fell into that quite well.
Yeah, fair enough. I didn't even realize that. So, do you guys know about the addition of some additional Borg scenes that they did?
No.
So, you know that section where you get a ton of footage of the Borg just taking over the Enterprise, like where they attempt to go into the auxiliary access to engineering, and then they all come out of the dock with the eye lasers.
Great stuff.
And then you get those extra. That's all added in after the fact.
Wow.
Because they showed the initial cut to the test audiences, and in a rare instances of test audiences being correct, they were like, "Oh, we really like the Borg stuff," so they just went back and shot because you notice there's no main characters in any of it; it's all just extras and background performers. And they just added more Borg body horror, more action, more creepy stuff because people just responded well to it, and it's like, it just adds completely to the flow of the film. But if you think about it, it's like, oh, there's nothing actually happening there. It's not advancing the plot. It's all just kind of like adding to the mood. But it's so cool that you don't mind. It's one of my favorite little bits of trivia about it.
Okay.
Oh yeah, it's really great because it gives that sense of how the Borg are just creeping like a cancer across the ship, and they're just like taking it over. Like that montage is really well done. And there's some, I'm sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say, who's the lieutenant that comes in sort of after Picard's had his his meltdown a little bit, and it comes up and he's like, yeah, the Borg have taken over deck certain. He's sort of very, he looks exhausted, doesn't he? He's like,
Daniels,
yeah. He looks exhausted. He looks like he's been in a fight for his life, and I appreciate that attention to detail that he's not this spangly Starfleet officer like, we tried to fight them back. He's just like, I'm really tired, sir. I need to go to bed.
Well, yeah, because I appreciate that they established that the atmospheric controls get fucked up with, and everyone is slowly starting to take off their uniform jackets. Yeah. They're all like unzipping their things. It's like it's fucking hot on this place, and we're like dealing with it. And he's covered in like scratches and like blood as well. And it's like, what kind of situations were you in that you were covered in blood fighting the Borg? They don't use bladed weapons really. And it's that cool thing where it's like, if you get touched by them, basically you're fucked. So it's like, what were you doing? And I also appreciate you get... so one of my favorite things that when we were watching TNG was Picard turns to Riker, assemble an away team, and Riker just makes eye contact with... And so tell me who. Who does Riker always bring with him on an away team? It's like 3 people, always.
It's like Data, Geordi, and Worf, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. It is always those 3. And that's because they are the broken members of the Enterprise crew. You have the guy who has the incredible visor and the engineering acumen, and then you have the 2 superhumans. Right? You have the one with the killer instinct, and then you have the one who can crack computers. And it's like, that is all you need. You maybe need a medic, so maybe you bring Crusher if you think that's going to be dealing with injuries. And you kind of appreciate... Yeah, exactly. And you appreciate why he does that when you try and see those poor Enterprise crewmen try and fight them physically. Like that poor guy who just kind of rams his thing and he just gets fucking smacked to the side and killed. It's just like, it's rough.
Well, that's one of my
Enterprise crewmen.
That's one of my favorite scenes, actually, is when they're moving through the ship and it's clear that Data's just the most valuable resource that Picard has at his disposal. Because Data's just taking out Borg, like
snapping necks.
Yeah. Left and right. He's throwing them back against... And so that's why it's so impactful when they reach under the door and they drag him out, because it's like, that's your best weapon, and you just lost it.
I found that scene a bit goofy though, where they just sort of kind of goes,
they just grab his ankles. It's a bit goofy, but it's fine. Because like they know that they have to take him off the board. They know that he's one of the most important things because he's just... Data is so invaluable, and yes, he causes so many problems, but there's a reason why when Maddox says, hey, maybe every ship in Starfleet should have a Data, you think about all those times that, cause and effect. You would have been fucked if you couldn't send that message back in time using his positronic net.
Yep.
And various billion other things where it's like, having an android is really helpful for these situations.
Except all those times that he also malfunctioned and took over the ship and...
I feel like it works out in the end. So I've seen some people who have complaints about this. I think it's like Red Letter Media specifically, because of what it does with Picard's character. So what do you guys feel about that?
I kind of think this is
in terms of
sorry, I think this
go
is
on. No.
Kind of an evolution of Picard from Best of Both Worlds and Family and moving along there. I found, obviously there have been, people have said, Patrick Stewart just wants to be a bit more actiony, and that is probably a legit thing to say that, he does play more of the action hero in this, but I think not with that criticism, not enough attention's paid to his scenes like with Lily and his sort of like eagerness to go back up and confront the Borg and deal with a part of his past that he has worked throughout the entire film. It starts off with like, the hallucination of the Borg sort of erupting from his cheek. So I feel like this one does stay true to the Picard character more than, say, Nemesis does, definitely.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this movie is what Generations was trying for. Like, they had to manufacture trauma for Picard in Generations. We don't have the board, so we're just going to kill your family, and you're going to be traumatized by that. Here, Picard is actually dealing with his PTSD from having been assimilated by the Borg, as you said, from Best of Both Worlds and Family. Like, so I don't. Do people actually complain about how they treat Picard in this? Because
they basically think he's a little bit too violent, and they quote unquote think that he dealt with his issues in like Iborg and through Descent, which I think is like way to admit that you don't understand how PTSD and trauma works. Where it's just because you deal with it in one instance in a controlled environment, it is not the same as when they are actively encroaching on your borders, threatening your home, killing your crew, and stealing people who you've spent the last 8 or 10 years just developing bonds with. It's a very different situation, which is why he reacts. Everyone is pointing out, yes, you are acting bloodthirsty and violent, and it makes sense, but you got to pull back from that.
Yeah. I was going to mention this when I rewatched this. I was like, you know what? Starfleet's absolutely right. You should not be going to face them.
Yeah. And that's what I love about it. Is that they establish early on, it's like, you should not be in a situation where you should face them again. Yes, you're right, but also, no, you're wrong. Because it's like, on the ship battle, absolutely integral. But like when it comes down to the fighting them in over a protracted period, man, he falls to pieces. It's not a great fight.
When the Admiral calls him, and he's like, Jean-Luc, and he finishes his sentence, and he's like, I know the Borg. The Admiral's next sentence is, yeah, you're not going. you just confirmed everything we were worried about. The fact that you can sense it's the Borg. You're going to stay out there in the neutral zone.
Admiral Hayes instead, but he's only fought Pakleds. He knows nothing about the Borg.
That's right.
Okay, but here's the thing. So that's actually a legit thing, and I like that. I appreciate that because it's so easy to write admirals and the command as stupid, so that your main character seems smart, right? But they have a point. And oh god, what was I going to say? I completely went out of my head.
Well, you're right. Yeah, obviously on paper he shouldn't go, but in reality he is the best equipped to fight because he's going to be doing some.
Yeah, because I feel like it's a bit of an issue where, yes, Picard should not probably go because you can't be quite sure. If he had fucking failed that Hail Mary and the Borg cube hadn't exploded when it did, you'd be like, oh, well, thanks, Picard. That didn't pay off well. But it does. Now, that being said, you really sidelined the Enterprise E, the only Sovereign class you have operational, given that we don't see another one around. Just put Riker on it.
Yeah.
Put Riker in command. He beat the Borg last time.
It's true, yeah, track record.
Just take Picard off, put him on a starbase, and put Riker in command. And suddenly it solves the issue. Now, I understand that, because of the things, I think you need you need the catharsis of him blowing the shit out of the Borg. But it just doesn't. It doesn't make Starfleet commands look very smart. It's like you can't sideline an asset like the Enterprise. Yeah. You just can't do that.
I mean, that's not the first time.
It's your flagship for a reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's stupid. Because I think I give them credit for being smart in one way, and then they fall into a different trap when the purpose of a first officer, you know?
It would have made a really boring movie. Picard on a starbase, sitting tapping his fingers, going, "What are they doing? What's going on?"
Speaking of which, did you read about the original treatment of this?
No.
Where the places of Picard and Riker were switched.
Oh really?
Where originally Picard was going to be on the ground with Lily, working on the Phoenix, and Riker was going to be up on the Enterprise fighting the Borg. And then they realized, there's nothing really going on. There's no emotional through line. And then all they did was swap them, and then suddenly it all starts working. It makes a lot more sense.
So, actually, I had... Sorry, my headphones are playing up. Oh, no, I had what I pulled off Mary Alpha for our notes is... So when it was still Star Trek Resurrection, it did closely resemble the final film, and I'll quote Memory Alpha here. But in the story, the Borg attack Zefram Cochrane's Montana laboratory, severely injuring the scientist, with Dr. Crusher fighting to save Cochrane's life. Captain Picard assumes his place in history, rallying a town around reconstructing the damaged warp ship. As the action unfolded, Picard would have become romantically involved with a local photographer and X-ray technician named Ruby, who helps the captain reconstruct a key element of the ship. And then aboard the Enterprise, Riker would have faced the Borg drones, and there wouldn't have been a Borg Queen at this point. So that would have been a very different film, I think, having Picard having, because there's no romantic subplot in this film in like one of the few.
Well, that's what I appreciate about it.
Apart from maybe Borg Queen and Data is almost that, but
I don't know, Picard and Lily have such a strong connection that if you wanted to go romantic with it, I wouldn't mind. But I appreciate that they keep it to just a kiss on the cheek and a strong bond formed through understanding. I appreciate that they keep it like that.
Yeah.
I feel like it works better than an Age, which is a proper romantic relationship, and it goes fucking nowhere.
Well, because you have the
million days of holiday left.
That's right. I mean, you bring it up, right? They create this little weird love triangle between the Borg Queen, Data, and Picard. Like, the Borg Queen is very much scorned ex-lover of Picard. In this age, oh, now Data, I have my new boyfriend, Data. I don't need you.
My new boy toy.
Literally.
Oh man, it's just such a dense film with quite a bit about it, and like.
What?
I appreciate that. Oh,
no, I was going to say, no, go on, you do yours first and then I'll move along.
Well, yeah, I was going to say that people who complain about action movie Picard, and I feel like that is a legitimate criticism you can lay at the feet of maybe Insurrection and Nemesis. I feel like here it's a lot more founded in what makes it work. Because guess what? It's when he puts the phaser down and starts acting more like the Picard you know that he succeeds, really. That's when he actually gets through to Data, and it's not by just killing them all like mercilessly through violence, but by trying to appeal to Data and get through that he succeeds. And that's very much more about Star Trek, is what that makes us hang together thematically more than the other ones, I feel like.
So what would you say are your least favourite parts of the film? And I know this is probably going to be quite a tough question, because I'm struggling to kind of think about what I don't particularly like about the film. And the only thing I can think of really is how just quickly and easily they just zap back to the future. And just kind of like, the classic Trek trope of just like, we can just travel in time, but it's not... We're not
we just choose not to, because the Temporal Prime Directive says you shouldn't.
The Shooby Dooby music. Like, pay for a
Roy
real rock
Orbison,
song.
you're not a fan?
Pay for like a bigger rock song. Like,
what would you have picked? Come on, pick a rock song.
Let's get into the Sandman.
Some sort of Elvis. Some sort of... Yeah.
Elvis, interesting.
Yeah, well,
Elvis would have been, that would have worked. I would have been okay with that. I feel like that's the thing. I feel like you need something really dumb to underscore like Cochrane's character. Get a bit of Beach Boys in there. Good vibrations.
That's a good one, actually.
My least favorite. I don't know if I have a least favorite scene, but one of my least favorite aspects is that Crusher doesn't get much to do.
Yeah.
While I appreciate that Lily gets to be Picard's like big emotional backbone here, and I understand that Crusher has a lot of emotional baggage with Picard, where it's hard to see objectively, and she's also in the chain of command, so it's a bit different. I feel like it would have added to it if she had at least helped Lily get through to Picard in some way, maybe just by giving her the inspiration. Or by having a moment with Picard, or going in there with her to talk to Picard about what he's doing. And I feel like all of the TNG movies massively underutilized Crusher in the worst way. This one's the least bad about it, but it sticks out the most because Troy gets the hilarious bar scene, and a few other bits and pieces where she gets to interact with Cochrane about inspiring humanity and teasing. Drunk Troy is not a low point. Drunk Troy, I quote that every day. We don't have time to talk about time. We don't have the time.
Sorry, you mean
Marina Sirtis is having so much fun.
About time. We don't have the time.
Oh, look, Crusher understands the chain of command. When she's captain aboard the Pasteur, she dresses down Picard for disagreeing with her on the bridge of that ship, and she would also not do. So she understands that once he's made his decision, it's the crew's job to follow his orders. But,
and we get Robert Picardo and Ethan Phillips.
Oh, right. I love that cameo.
Analgesic cream part. Yeah, good.
Do a dance, tell a story. I don't care. Just buy us a few seconds. It's hilarious. And I think I've told the story before about how he landed that cameo. But if you haven't, if you don't remember that, go and look up Robert Picardo telling the story about how he got his first contact cameo. It's hilarious. He tells it really well.
You got to tell us now. You can't leave it there.
Yeah. What? I don't remember this.
So basically, he heard that they were making a new Star Trek movie, and he heard that they had created a new ship that was in this rough time frame, and he was like, basically, was like going up to the producers while they were working on Voyager, saying, a ship in this time frame, it would make sense if it had an emergency medical hologram, much like the one on Voyager. And they were like, huh. And it's like, you should think about that. And then he got to another producer and do the exact same thing. It's like, it's interesting. And just kept on doing that to every single producer, just seeding it into their brains until they eventually were like, yeah, we should get Robert Picardo in here. He tells it a lot better than I do, but it's basically the case he managed to kind of gaslight his way into the movie.
And a great addition. And
I'm
again,
still trying to think of my...
Like, if you talk about crossovers and, me being, however old, an 11-year-old in the cinema, I'm just going, oh my god, they put Voyager in it! Ah!
Yeah, and it makes perfect sense. Everyone's like, it's literally the Voyager sickbay that they used for that set, so it makes perfect sense.
They did, didn't they? Yeah.
Yeah, you can literally tell because it has the bio bed in the right position, all the little vials and such. Like Kess is just hiding around the corner. God, I really am trying to think of what my least favorite scene is. I don't know if I have a least favorite scene.
There's not a lot.
It's a really tight movie. It's a really tight and tidy movie. It doesn't have a lot of waste. It's very efficient. It moves through scene to scene. I mean, I guess some of the Cochrane stuff is a little slow at times, like the hero worship stuff.
Oh yeah, but he says the line, doesn't he? So you're all some kind of astronauts on some kind of Star Trek.
You get away with that when he's the Gene Roddenberry analog. It's fine. I'm fine with it when it's the Gene Roddenberry analog. You get away with that.
But it's not bad, right? It's just not as action packed as the action stuff happening on the ship.
Yeah. It's that Star Trek humor. You kind of got to let it. Like, it's a very acquired taste,
And then he looks through the telescope and look, there's our ship, and he's like, "Oh my god!" Like you could have just put a sticker on the other side or something like that.
Well, he looks. That's the thing. He looks.
He does.
He goes, ha ha ha.
Yeah. I guess so. I guess my one criticism is that maybe the stuff happening planetside, and this is what you were saying, that the treatment was changed because of it. There's not. Doesn't have the same urgency as what's happening.
Oh, definitely not. Yeah.
Yeah, and that could maybe have been directed a little different, just a little more frenetic action going on.
I suppose. My one criticism, I think, is the actual end finale in engineering when they've punctured the plasma coolant and then it just turns into three people grappling each other on a wire. Like when you think about it, it's just like a 60-year-old it's Patrick Stewart, Brent Spiner, and Alice Krige playing hugs on a wire, and it looks a little bit silly.
Like the Borg Queen, who has like capabilities of summoning tendrils out from like anywhere, just like drops and into the gas.
No, I like a little Dr. No clasping with your metallic hands, sinking into the acid.
Yeah, I'm really trying to pick a nit here. It's still a great climax. I love the plasma coolant effect. It looks like really intense and
Data's
awesome.
Makeup is like amazing. Like where they've got he's got part of his body's got flesh on it, and then like it gets stripped away, and he's just left with the circuitry behind it, which is a little bit Planet-esque, isn't it? It's a bit like
a little bit, but. You wear your inspirations on your sleeve. This is another thing where I've heard people criticize. They're like, "Oh, why did Picard snap the Borg Queen's spine?" And I'm like, "Bitch, if I saw the spine of a queen of a species that reproduces by assimilating technology, I'm not bringing that back to the 24th century so that Starfleet can analyze it. Someone is going to forget to turn a force field on. Some power resonance thing is going to happen, and then you're going to have to blow up a starbase because it got assimilated by the Borg. Just blow it up. Just snap it."
Some YouTubers out there, someone's like, "We're going to read a part of the Borg Queen today. Wonder what will happen."
Like, it's literally that thing where it's like, when the Borg are involved, you can't afford to be Starfleet about it. You have to go, "I say we take off and nuke the site from orbit. It's the only way to be sure." And that's the only way to be sure, is to snap that fucking spine and like shoot it into the sun while you're on your way out. Honestly, like, just get rid of all of it. You don't want any of it near Starfleet anything with like power or an ODN line. No, just get rid of it.
Can you imagine?
It's the only way to be sure.
Like, you've got to imagine it from Starfleet's point of view as well. Because when the Enterprise takes out the Borg cube, it blows up, and then they see him disappear and then come back pretty much instantly, and they're all knackered, and the ship's like half Borgified. Like, what happens? Like, we're fine. We're just over it. It's fine. Just don't worry about it.
Yeah, how long is the Enterprise E in quarantine? like
yeah,
outside the solar system.
Yeah,
For-
multiple weeks. It's just like we have to scrape all the Borg shit off the walls.
That's
and
why,
like,
that's why Admiral
pick up
Bounty
all...
sent them to a nebula in the middle of nowhere. Just get out of it. Just go somewhere else. Just get away from any habitable
Like, you know
planet.
how in the beginning of Discovery Season 3, you've got that guy who has to mop up the spore cube because it's got all the bits of Control
Yes.
Leland? Some poor sap in, like, Utopia Planitia has to, like, scrape off all the flakes of, like, plasma
No,
coolant
no,
liquefied flesh
Barry
off
on
of
sweep,
engineering.
mate. Barry on sweep,
Barry on
straight
sweep,
through,
yeah.
clears it out.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
you're not
all right.
wrong.
All your organic mess, 100% guaranteed.
Do you think it actually vaporizes people, or do you think it just kills them? Because not Tuvok had enough time to scream.
That's true.
Too much.
Not too fuck yeah.
Well, because it was dissolving the lower half of his body as he.
Oh,
it's
that's
very
awful.
slow
That's
down.
no good.
It's like the Austin Powers scene with the steamroller. It's just coming and go,
Get out of the way.
all right.
All right.
Since now we've been making jokes.
So-
I think we've reached its logical conclusion.
Absolutely. So, we can only talk about this in relation to Insurrection. This is better than Insurrection, isn't
Absolutely.
it? Really?
Oh,
like-
God,
Without
yeah.
a doubt.
This is the best TNG film by far.
Yeah.
Like,
By a country mile, yeah.
Without a doubt. And one of the best Star Trek films, depending on your opinion on how you rate Undiscovered Country and Wrath of Khan. But yeah, it's top league.
well, the thing is, when there are people out there who this is their favorite Star Trek film, and I'm like,
I will
that's
put
fine.
it up
I'll that's fine. You know, that's a personal thing. I don't. It's not true.
You're wrong, but it's fine.
but it's fine. It's like a respectable choice. Like, I respect your.
Well, that's the thing.
That is
That's
a
where
good
you have to
choice.
draw the line between I think this is the best versus this is my favorite. Like, I will say to the end of the world, for example, that I think Legend of Zelda: Twilight Princess is my favorite, but I don't think it's the best Zelda game type thing. Where it's like, if you wanted to say that First Contact was your favorite Star Trek film, absolutely respectable. But I think to say it's the best, like Wrath of Khan, is just so hard to beat. It's such a hard nut to crack.
Yes, I don't. Do you want to call yourself out?
I have my own opinions about that. Although Wrath of Khan is very, very good, but I think the First Contact is better.
When we
Anyway.
do this segment about Wrath of Khan,
we
it's going to
should.
go
What
on
was
for
that?
3
Wait.
hours.
Say it louder onto the recording.
I will another time. We'll have my. I think I've said my opinions on Wrath of Khan before. I think it's an amazing film, but it has some glaring flaws. But anyway, on another moment before Shai leaves us forever. Thank you everyone for joining us. This has been a great Star Trek show. We'll probably do this again next month. I think we'll try and keep this on a monthly league, bringing you news and reviews. And I think we're inevitably going to talk about Star Trek Insurrection next time, which is going to be a good discussion on how underrated that film I think is. And I think you feel the same way as well.
Idle.
Yeah.
Have you noticed that your boobs are starting to firm up? Not that we care about such things in this day and age.
It is a gorge. Like, when I was making the dub clips for this, like, Insurrection was 90% of them, because there is just so many good moments in Insurrection. It's such a funny film.
What does that tell you about the movie?
Jonathan Frakes hit gold twice. How about that?
Okay.
Anyway,
fact,
Second ASMR movie.
As a double bill for your watch the Insurrection commentary track where Marina Sirtis and Jonathan Frakes talk about why is everyone in the Baku village white, calling each other their Zimbabwe instead of their Inzadi. Just hilarious shit. So just enjoy that. That's my recommendation. Go and watch the commentary track for both this and Frakes' other film.
and on that note, we will see you next time. Oh, join us next week for Timelines Talks, where we'll be going through the latest crew and things like that. So,
And we'll be celebrating Automaton's birthday.
Otto's spending his birthday with us, talking about timelines. So there we are. So join us next week for that. Keep an eye on the Discord for all events and our YouTube page for other stuff. So from myself and the guys, we will see you later. Ta-ra.